Okay. Okay, we should be live now. Alright. So, as usual, it's that time of the week. It's the weekly live stream for this Game Tech Reviews channel. I don't know how long the stream will be. It kind of depends, as usual, on like where the viewers tend to drive the stream to a certain degree in terms of what we end up talking about. That's usually how it goes. Last week we did do all of kind of the news items in the first 40 minutes, the first hour essentially. I don't know if we're gonna do it the same way. It kind of depends. I kind of like to let my regular viewers who join sometime midstream to be able to get some of that content, because that is kind of what I feel like a lot of the viewers are here for, more so than just to watch me play a video game. But we could do that too. I mean, I might actually start playing Jedi Survivor. I know that game. That game is pretty popular. It's pretty controversial, although I don't really see why it's so controversial. In terms of, I didn't really have many problems with it. I'll have to download a big update for it, though. That might slow down the the stream. Let's see. No, we do not want to update Rocket League. Alright, well, we'll see. If the stream gets really choppy, and if my voice sounds messed up or distorted, let me know, because I am trying to update Jedi Survivor. I forgot to log into Steam before I started this stream, so if I am going to play Jedi Survivor on stream, I am going to have to download the update. That's a pretty big update, but it looks like it's not going to take that long. Good evening, Joey. As usual, you're like the first one here. You're usually the first one here. You always enter with the good evening message. You're not one of those people that says first. First. Those commentators who will comment with first. But I guess that's a YouTube video thing more so than an actual stream comment. Alright, let me see. So to do Dan Hung's story. So I have a couple of news items to go over this stream. Let me bring them up. We can talk about them in a little bit. I kind of want to let some of the other viewers join first so they don't miss out. Because I know Matt missed out on pretty much the whole entire discussion last week because he joined later, and then we had already done all of that. Try to be supportive of the local techie brother. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm trying to finish some of those games, but I am kind of having to do a lot all at once right now. So this month isn't going to be an easy month in terms of game stuff. Or I guess I should say free time for gaming. So it's one of those months where when I have a lot of stuff to do, when it comes to like free time, if I have free time, what I'll end up doing is I'll just end up playing a game that's kind of easy to just zone out and not do a whole lot with the game. So this new game, Honkai Star Rail, so the one that's on the screen right here, this is a prime example of that type of game. It's a lot like your traditional MMO, except it doesn't have player interaction. It's more like a single player. It's like a single player role-playing game. Very much like the other game that you've seen me stream many times, that Genshin Impact game. It's made by the same people that made that game. But this game had, like, record-breaking downloads in the first day of its release. It's completely free to play, too, and I think that's part of the reason why I feel like these type of games end up being so successful. As long as they can pull it off right. Like, as long as they have the elements that I consider... I call them the holy trinity of game design. So, good music, so basically a good soundtrack. And why does that actually matter? Well, it does matter if you... like psychologists have done studies where they've done marketing studies where if a store plays background, or a restaurant, I guess, but mostly like retail, if they play like background music, but they don't play it super loud, it's just really kind of like ambient in the background, studies have shown that the customers are more likely to stick around longer in the store than to just kind of go in and leave. You know, obviously, if someone's just going to go right into the store just to get something and then immediately leave, but this would apply more to, like, you know, classic department stores, retail stores for stuff like clothing, or I guess electronics, like Best Buy, Micro Center, like those type of places. It applies to those sort of things, not so much like grocery stores, although grocery stores do that too. But like that's kind of one of the things. So soundtrack does actually matter. I guess the sound in general, not just the music, but like the voice acting, the audio in the game has to be good. So that whole thing, like sound, and then obviously the user interface. So is it easy to do things? Like, is it intuitive? Like UI design, user interface design, that'd be like number 2. And then the third one would be like the element that makes you want to keep playing the game. So like that could be the story, the combat system, or whatever kind of the game mechanics overall. Like those are the sort of things that I consider the holy trinity that makes a game good. Like if a game can do those 3 things well, it's probably going to be successful financially. If it can't do those things well, or if one of those things is lacking, then if it's trying to be a live service game like an MMO or this type of game, then it's probably not going to have the player base stick around long term, or at least the majority of the player base. Because I've seen a lot of games do that. That's usually how games will come out. There'll be a lot of marketing hype. Everybody will play the game for like the first week or 2, maybe the first month, and then it'll just start dropping players like flies, essentially, and people just leave. So I am well too aware of that sort of thing happening with games. So single player games, that doesn't really apply, because a single player game like the Star Wars game, like Hogwarts Legacy, it's a single player experience. There might be some kind of multiplayer interactive elements, but not really. So, you know, like, what's an example of that? Well, I've talked about that in the past. Like, Lightning Returns has those elements. I'm wondering if Final Fantasy 16 might have those elements. Forspoken had those elements, now that I think about it. Nier Automata had stuff like that. So there's a lot of examples where there's not necessarily multiplayer, but there's ways to interact with the player. Like Elden Ring, for example. Elden Ring actually has multiplayer, but the leaving a message behind on the ground, kind of like a comment in the game world for someone to read that, that's sort of what I'm talking about. So those sort of elements. So those sort of like player... I call it like indirect player interaction without it really being like a multiplayer experience. So that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, this game... I said I was going to finish those other games. It's tough, because those games, like Hogwarts Legacy and Star Wars, I want to play those on streams because they're single-player games, so that the people who are watching me play the game, if they're interested in the game, if they get interested in the story to a certain degree, like Marcelo is like probably a really good example of this. So like anybody who kind of watches the stream and they see the gameplay, and then they'll make funny comments about the characters in the game or whatever, that sort of thing. So it's like if I play those games off stream and I end up finishing the game, then it's just, you know, whatever. Because I did that with Kingdom Hearts 3, I believe, and then there was another game, Crisis Core and Kingdom Hearts. I ended up finishing them off stream, so it's just kind of like, okay, here's the game, and then that was it. So I'm probably gonna try to play those on stream and finish them on stream, just like with Fatal Frame. So when I'm not doing that, I guess games like this will be the only other thing that I'll be playing. So, because I'm not someone who plays Minecraft or Fortnite. I'm not really a big... I've said this before, I don't really care about first-person shooters, so I don't really play any of those games. I mean, I have PUBG, I do technically have Fortnite, but I don't actually play it. So, yeah, I think the only kind of, like, multiplayer competitive type game that I actually enjoy playing would be Smite, but not a whole lot of people like that game, and the game's kind of old, but it's a pretty good MOBA. I just like that camera view more than like the bird's eye view that you see in games like League of Legends, or the first person view that you see in games like Minecraft. So this sort of camera angle in terms of a game, like where you're behind the character on screen and you can see your character on screen moving around, this is my preferred viewpoint, like, into a game. Like, seeing the character in front of me. Regardless of whether it's my character avatar or if it's, like, a character in the story. Like, in this case, we have a character, and it's not really a character that you create, but it's a character that's in the game. So that's basically my favorite type. So that's why I like games like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, because they all feature this type of camera viewpoint, and I just kind of prefer that. So what did I need to do in this game? Oh, I was working on, let's see, I was trying to work on leveling up some characters, but I guess, hold on, let's see, where are we at in timestamps, just so I'm aware. So we're like 12 minutes in. So I think at the 15-minute mark, we'll start going over the news articles for the week, so that I don't spend too much time, because I know, like, if you don't want to stick around, because I know, Joey, I think you join the stream, and then you usually participate if we're talking about technology, but if not, like, if it's just a game, then yeah. So I want to be respectful of people's time, so we'll probably do the news stuff in a little bit here, once a few others join. I think I was trying to level up his... Oh, I can't level this up, because I've already maxed for the week. So I need to get the talent material things. So, like, these things. This is synthesized. I can level up these. I can get some of these things. You know, what I think I'm going to do, actually, is I'm probably just going to grab the... I think let's see. Simulated universe. I tried this yesterday and I failed it like 2 times. I don't know if I really want to do it again. I'll probably do that. How many days? So 3 days. I'll probably do that some other time. I think I'm gonna grab the level up things for the weapons, because I'm always low on this stuff. So we're gonna do these. We're just gonna do like 4 battles here. Oh, you know what? I think I need to put in Herda. But I don't think... I just realized something. I don't have all her artifacts equipped because I gave them to a different character. Okay, that's good. See... Yeah, this is the problem. This is the problem when you try to min-max without having to, like, overextend in these type of games. So, and I end up having to swap artifacts, and I forget who has the artifacts that she was using. I think it was, I think it was Tingyun. Yeah, it was Tingyun, +6. I wish this game had a system like Monster Hunter, where it had equipment sets, so you could quickly just load preset armor things that you had. So I wish you could just load those things for characters. It would make swapping gear between characters a lot easier. But I feel like they don't want me to do that because then people would just do the bare minimum, and they would just like put the 4 characters they want to use, and then just give them all their good artifacts. Instead of having to grind multiple different armor sets for all the characters you want to build. Okay, so she has +6 on everything, and then I think we wanted to do... Okay, that's the weapon. Okay. Okay. So we need to go and do... You know, one thing I will say about this game... One thing about Hoyoverse, the developers of Genshin Impact and this game, and I think Honkai 3rd. I never played Honkai 3rd, but basically Genshin and this game, their attention to detail is really good. Like, for example, every character has a cell phone, and their cell phones, they even give them an individual looking cell phone case. So like if we switch over, see like Don Hung has like the most boring, generic. He has like the type of cell phone case that I have. Like it's so boring looking. But then if you go to like, let's say like Japard has some cool looking paladin skin on his phone. Herda has like this whatever, this like mirror on the wall thing or whatever that's supposed to be. That's really cool. Like the attention to detail. And then like this character, this is not supposed to be a person. So this like the people, the humans, I guess they're humans. They look like human in terms of, but if you look at her, she's like a doll. Like you can tell by looking at the joints. She literally looks like a Figma doll. Or like a Figma, like an action figure. That is cool. I noticed that, like, I think the 3rd day. I don't know why I didn't notice that, like, the first day I started playing the game. But, like, the attention to detail in this game is really, really good. Alright, so we're going to go with double frost. We're not going to need a healer. This is going to be super easy. In fact, what I'm going to do is just auto battle.
The sanctuary is but a vision. Break.
Time to twirl.
So let me start pulling up the news articles. See, this is great. Like, I can be pulling up the news articles while the game is just leveling up and grinding the character stuff for me. So that's really nice. Okay, so we've got these things to talk about. Let me move this over here. Bring this over here. I've got paint pulled up, so if we want to talk about like something from that requires me to draw stuff, then I have that ready.
The sanctuary is but a vision. Break.
Time to twirl. Time to twirl.
Okay. All right. I guess that's it. Because now I don't have any more... What do they call this stuff in this game? I forgot what it's called. Resin? Trailblaze power. I don't have any more Trailblaze power, so I can't do those things anymore. So we're pretty much done. That was very short. Okay, let's do this. Let's go to the, where do I need to go? Oh, I need to go to this place. The Exalting Sanctum. All right. Anyway, let's do some news article topics, and then we probably come back to the game.
Is there anything interesting here? I doubt it.
All right. So maybe move you guys over here. Oh, you received the Blackmagic Attempt Mini Pro ISO. You just need to learn to use everything.
But the real me is better.
Is that the hold on, let's see. What does that even do? What is that a? It's a. Oh, is it like a DAC? Is it like a? Is it what is it? I'm looking at it online. Actually, I'll pull it up here.
Not bad. But
The Atem Mini Pro. It has 4 HDMI switchers and it can put up steels and picture like what you're showing right now. Oh. Affordable live switcher with 4 standards. Converted HDMI inputs, USB webcam. Oh.
But the real me is better.
Okay, so you're gonna do streaming? I thought you were going to make YouTube videos. I didn't know you were gonna do streaming. I think this. Oh, it works with Mac also. Well, yeah. The nice thing about Blackmagic Design is a lot of their stuff works with Mac and Windows.
Not bad. But the real
Looking at this reminds me of a long time ago. They used to have a. I used to use an internal capture card from Blackmagic Design. It was the Blackmagic Intensity Pro. And then there was also the Blackmagic Intensity Pro external, which was a USB 3.0. It looked kind of like this, although obviously it didn't have any of the buttons and the multi-input. It was just an external capture card. It would be perfect for what I'm doing. I'm just trying to think, like, what would I be able... What do I need to do with this, though? Well, I guess if I wanted to showcase multiple computers? I mean, I could... Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because you've got 4 different... You've got 4 different inputs. Also records 4 or 5 individual videos including... Yeah, okay. Wait a minute. So it can record... It can record 4 separate video inputs. Like as individual files or as one big file where you have to do picture-in-picture? Okay. That means that it has some kind of, yeah, wait, this is USB 3? If it has that much bandwidth, it's... How is it only USB 3, though?
But the real me is better.
USB-C 3.1 Gen 1. That's only, what is that? That's like a 5... That's like a 5 gigabit... That's like a 5 gig port. That isn't even like a 10 gig, right?
Perfect.
You plug in a USB-C SSD.
Not bad. But the real me is better.
So is this... How'd you find out about this thing? Because I've never even known about this. This is the first I've ever heard of something like this. I mean, I knew there was, like, professional stuff for video, like, on-site filming production and that kind of stuff. Is this the sort of thing that people do with that? Oh, Gil. Okay. He uses one of these. Oh, is this the thing that he had in... Because I remember in one of his videos, in one of his older videos, he had what looked like a DAC or something to the right of him, almost outside of the shot for his camera. So maybe, oh, that's what this thing was. Man, this looks complicated. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to use it. Like, I would have to look at how, like... This seems more advanced than what Like, this is the sort of thing that if you use one of these, you can do way more than the bare minimum. Like, what I do is what I consider the bare minimum. I don't do anything fancy. Like, if I think there was one or two, there was at least 2 streams where I showed where I use a capture card to show a second computer. So do you remember the stream where we were talking about overclocking on the new Ryzen 7000 series on the X670E? And I did a live stream talking about how to overclock, and it was memory overclocking and the curve optimizer. And I remember showing the BIOS from the other computer. So the way I did that was I used the AverMedia capture card. The HDMI out from the other PC was plugged into the HDMI input. So kind of like this thing. So for instance, port 1 on this thing would have been the input from the other PC, and I would just show this on screen. Yeah, he had a lot of stuff. Okay, so this is a 10 gig USB. So Gen 2 1 or wait.
But the real news better.
USB-C. Okay, Herda keeps talking in the background. I don't know if that's annoying. I need to turn this off or something. This character won't be quiet.
Do you know how to fix
And now we've got random other characters talking in the background too. I guess maybe this guy won't talk so much. So let's go with him. Okay. It has an Ethernet. It has a 1 gig Ethernet for live stream. What? This is like an all-in-one sort of external stream device. It even has an Ethernet port though. What is the Ethernet port for? Like, you would live stream directly to this, or you would live stream directly to the internet from this thing, but how would you... Oh, you would control this via some kind of software on the PC. Via the USB port? Okay, that guy's gonna start singing. That's even more annoying. I'm probably gonna have to turn... He's gonna keep humming in the background the whole time. Among other things, it can take the place of capture cards to a degree. Well, I think this is multiple capture cards. One thing though is the fact that this is doing multiple inputs over USB-C. I'm surprised this doesn't require Thunderbolt or USB 4, because it's 4 individual. Oh wait, hold on. So it's one. It can record 4 inputs, but it can only output 1 at a time. So it doesn't have to. It doesn't require the PC to do the encoding, is what it sounds like. So does this thing have a built-in encoder? Video recording. One program out has H.264 MP4 file at the streaming quality setting and see, because I don't understand how this would do for inputs individually. It has its own ASIC that does the video compression, H.264. So the old AverMedia cards had their own H.264 encoders as well, but they were never really that good. Back then, CPU encoding would look better than H.264. H.264 has come a long way in the last 10 years. So this one's probably on a much newer one. But I remember the one that I had on the AverMedia Live Gamer. The Live Gamer HD had a built-in H.264 encoder. The quality on that thing was terrible. You had for 1080p 30 FPS, you basically had to be doing 50,000 Mbps, megabits per second, on the bit rate in order to achieve actual good quality video, which is an insane amount of bit rate, which means that the file size of the recording would be massive. Because it wasn't good at compressing stuff. You need way too much bit rate. So over time, obviously, you know, video GPUs got their own video encoders, just like that thing, just like this thing. But the GPU ones were terrible in the beginning. They were just as bad as that one. So CPU encoding was still the way to go. It changed a lot in the last 5 years. Since, I want to say, 2018. Yeah, it was the RTX 20 series was what really made it possible to encode video on a GPU using H.264. Because if you wanted to do it in the past, if you were going to use your GPU, you had to use extremely high bitrate, and you had to lower the quality, because if you ran it on quality preset, it would basically max out your GPU, and then if you're playing a game, or if you're doing anything, it would just make the frame rate drop dramatically. You'd suffer a lot of performance stuttering and all kinds of stuff if you're using the GPU. So it's changed a lot. Yeah, I might have to look into it. I'm gonna have to look into this. It looks like it's really... To me, this looks like it's definitely the professional thing. Like, what I do is all amateur, you know, like, I just figure it out as I go. That's how I've always done these things. I've just kind of figured it out as I go. Yeah, you're right, though. It does, yeah. The one other question I had, so when you bought this, or when you buy this, does it include a DaVinci Resolve Studio license for the professional, for the full version of the software as opposed to the free version? Because somebody, I forgot who it was, I don't know if it was Nisco or somebody, well, I'm not going to use names because I don't know who it was, but somebody in the live stream was saying that if you buy a Blackmagic Design camera, they specifically said a camera, you get a DaVinci Resolve Studio license. So I don't know if this includes one. Unfortunately, it does not. Okay, so it's the cameras then that have it. The keyboards and some of the other things like that include that. Okay. Yeah. Still, though, the free version is... That's all I use for video editing. I've been using DaVinci Resolve now for, what, like 2 or 3 years. And I've never had any problems with it, and it works fine. So, and there's never been a thing where... There's never been a time where I couldn't do something with it that would require me to have the paid version. So that's the reason why I never really bothered to do anything. Like, the camera thing was a good idea. At some point, I will have to get a 4K camera, because I still don't have a 4K camera, so I can't... Like, if I was going to do, say, a product review, like if I was going to do another unboxing video and talk about some product or do a review, I would need... ideally, I'd like to have a 4K camera to do that, just so I'm more, like, up to speed on the standard and what you see with a lot of the TechTuber space. Because a lot of the videos now for product reviews are all done in 4K. So that's just technology moving forward. So I'm still using my old Sony XR160 or whatever it was from like 2011. So, I mean, I have, let's see. Sony XR160. This thing. I want to see like a picture of it. No, I don't want to go there. Let's look at this. This is what I use. This is the camera that I use to record my YouTube videos. This is for the videos that you see when I'm doing an unboxing or a review of something with B-roll. So like when I did the 7950X 3D build, the 13900K build, the 7700X build, the unboxing of the Red Devil limited edition, you know, all those videos were filmed using this Sony Handycam from like more than a decade ago. Like this is, and it's got an old 2.5-inch hard drive. It does not have any flash. Oh, it does have a, it does have an SD or micro, not micro. It has an SD card expansion slot, and I think it also supports Sony's Memory Stick Pro Duo that no one really uses anymore. But it has those, and it has the 160 gigabyte, 2.5-inch spindle hard drive. That's how old this camera is. It's got an old hard drive. So if you drop this camera, you know, good luck with that hard drive. So that's why kind of need to get a newer camera. Hey, Psycho. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you know, like with proper lighting, it still gets the job done. So the other camera that I have is the Sony A5100. So this is the other one. So the one that I use, the way you guys see me right now is from this camera. So this one. This is like the typical one that all the like Twitch people use, because it has the flip up selfie screen. You can flip up the screen and then you can see yourself while you're filming yourself. So, you know, this is another really old camera. like it only does 1080p 60. But the nice thing about it, it's one of those mirrorless, you can change the lens out, so you can use like Zeiss lens on it and stuff like that. So, hey Marcelo. Alright, maybe I should exit out of the game because the background noise is gonna get on people's nerves. The character is still like humming and stuff. Alright, let me just exit out of the game, so we'll just go over the news articles, and then if we start up another game, it'll either be Star Rail or maybe Star Wars again. Because I did say I wanted to do, like, try to complete those games before the end of June, so... Alright. Yeah, so this is what I use. Like, I only have, you know, this camera and the other Sony Handycam. Alright, that had me had to make sure I... You can think Japard was the character from Honkai Star Rail that was humming in the background the whole time. Yeah, so this is what I use. Actually, yeah, well, I don't want to, like, detach it because then it'll probably fall over because it's on, like, a mount. But anyway, that's all I have. So I have the Sony, I have the mirrorless camera, and then I have the old camcorder. Both of these cameras are probably, like, a decade old. I know the Handycam is really old. That thing, I got it in, like, 2011, and it was already, I think, a clearance item. I got it while it was on clearance, so from like Fry's Electronics or something, on the cheap. So that's what I've been using. And then this thing, I actually got the Sony Alpha 5100. I want to say in 2017 or 2016, somewhere around there. I've had it for a while, but not as long as the Handycam. The Handycam I've had forever. Yeah, so, but yeah, this thing sounds really, really good. Once you figure out how to actually use it, let me know, like, how long it takes you to learn how to do everything with this. Because this thing is really, it's really nice, but to me, it's a little bit intimidating because it's got so many different things. Like, look at all the fact that you can do 4 different video inputs and record 4 different video inputs. And then there's a mixer, and then you've got like a built-in H.264 encoder. This is one of those things where I have a feeling like I have a feeling the people that go to Evo and like video game tournaments and stuff, or like media channels like IGN, when they go to a developer's studio to, you know, get some info on a video game that's upcoming or whatever, like for instance, like Tekken 8. You know, like if the media tour gets to go visit Namco Bandai and they get to like record video game footage of the video game, I'm pretty sure they bring something like this. They bring some kind of external box that lets them record the video footage while they're playing the game, so that when they go back to their whatever, they leave essentially the game studio, then they can do all their post-production editing and all that stuff with the raw footage. I think that's what they use. They use something like this to get the raw footage of the video game. I mean, it obviously doesn't have to be video game footage. It can be whatever. But, you know, that's just one example that I could think of where this thing would come in handy. I mean, but technically you wouldn't need something like this. This would do that. But you could get away with something like an AverMedia, what did they call it? Like the AverMedia Pro or Extreme Pro or whatever the AverMedia, I don't know what it is. I will look at it now. The Gamer Portable, that's what it was. This USB thing. So basically something like this. They plug this thing in, or they would plug in the HDMI from the console, get the video feed, and hit the record button on here. They don't have to even plug in any computer. All they do is plug this thing in and get power to it, and it just pulls the video in line and records it. So something like that. 1080p 60. So like a Live Gamer Extreme 2. Yeah, like this thing. Yeah, something like this. This even has 4K 60 pass-through. So see, like, when they go to a Bandai Namco or whoever invites them to come over and, like, play the game before the release, or, you know, like, IGN will show up, GameSpot will show up, whoever else is a big, like, maybe Rip from Level Up Your Game, he'll get to go. They'll probably bring something like this, plug it in, and record the footage while they're there. The basics of it is pretty straightforward, but there is so much you can do that a lot of that can get really complicated. Yeah, the Live Gamer is the thing that I've always used. Now, I don't have any external Live Gamer thing. The only external capture card that I have is the Elgato HD60S. So, yeah, this is not what I was expecting. Why did it go to this website? What is this? Okay, Elgato, you obviously don't want to show what your thing looks like. This thing. I've got one of these. In fact, I'm using it right now. So, the way you guys can see me, so that Sony camera, the Alpha F5100, is plugged into this thing. Into this Elgato capture card. External capture card. So that's what I'm using. Oh, this is the only external capture card I have. But, you know, like the AverMedia one would basically do the same thing. So what you have, though, is basically, it's like those things, but it's like 4 of those things combined or something. Because you can do 4 different inputs. Those are only single input. And you have audio. Now, I think some of them do have the audio. The 4K ones, unfortunately, don't for some reason. The 1080p ones do, though. Okay, so let's get into the news articles for the week. So one of the things, I guess the first one we'll talk about is, it is May 4th. So May the 4th be with you, as they say. So Hogwarts Legacy got a massive patch today, supposedly, and it fixed a lot of things. But, you know, I didn't really see any problems with the game myself, but they added stuff. So, like, NVIDIA DLSS was updated to 3.1.2, AMD FSR was updated to 2.2, and Intel XESS was updated to 1.1. It introduces some ray tracing improvements and fixes. There was a lot of bugs with ray tracing in that game, and I think I showed some of that on one of the streams that I did, where like I remember you would go into a bathroom, and if you had ray tracing turned on, if you were in a bathroom when the sun was coming up in the morning, or I guess when it was going down in the evening, all the sun's rays would somehow pierce right through the wall of the castle and go straight through the toilet stalls and just beam all that light right onto the floor of the bathroom and just light up that bathroom like it's the surface of the sun. That would only happen if you had RT turned on. So that's what I remember. And I was like, that's not how a school bathroom's supposed to look at like 10 a.m. in the morning or 9 a.m. in the morning. So I was like, we're going to turn this off. so those were some of the things that I remember. Yeah, the sunlight was just bleeding through the walls in certain parts of the game. So that was definitely a bug with the ray tracing in that game. So, yeah, ambient occlusion. Yeah, see, ambient occlusion wasn't working because apparently the wall was supposed to occlude or cover up the light so it couldn't come in, but it was ignoring that. It was just coming right through the wall like it had some kind of X-ray vision, or was basically, nuclear energy just coming through and piercing everything. They would need to put way more concrete on that wall if they wanted to stop those ray traced reflections. There's still a problem they describe on the AMD release notes, but it's only affecting the 580. Yeah, I don't know if that was this problem though, because I think this problem applied to basically everything. You turn on RT and it's like that was it. It would do it for everything. Because I remember I did multiple videos on this game. Like I have footage from the 5700 XT. I think that was as far back. No, that's not true. I think the oldest card that I tested was the GTX 1080. So I have a video showing the GTX 1080. I have one showing Vega. Did I do Vega? I don't think I did Vega. No, I didn't do Vega. I did RX 5700 XT, 6700 XT, Intel A770, and the 3080 Ti, and the 6900 XT, and the 7900X, or the 7900 XTX. So I did separate videos for each one of them, and there was no point in like the ray tracing because it was bugged in all of them. I'd run around and I'd see that. Actually, no, I left it on. I did RT on and off comparisons for some of the videos. For the ones that could run ray tracing, obviously, the GTX 1080, that's not going to do it, and the old 5700 XT isn't going to support it either. But for the ones where I could do ray tracing, I did test it. But I did all the tests at Hogsmeade, so you would never have seen the problem. But it did affect all of them, because I remember I was thinking to myself, should I show footage from inside Hogwarts, or should I just do Hogsmeade? Ultimately I decided I'm just going to do Hogsmeade because the video will be way too long if I include Hogwarts, and the performance in Hogwarts is way better than in Hogsmeade. So I thought by doing Hogsmeade, that would be like the worst case scenario. So people would see, okay, this is like the worst it can possibly be. You max the settings, and you're doing like, depending on the graphics card, if I felt the graphics card was supposed to be for 1440p as the target resolution for Ultra, or 4K Ultra, I would size it based off of the graphics card that I was testing. So, but yeah, this issue was basically affecting everything back then. So, but this game is really successful. I feel like this game, currently, for Game of the Year contenders, Hogwarts Legacy is still definitely in the top of the list. Like, when I think about games that have come out this year, what do we have that's new this year that could be a contender for Game of the Year besides Hogwarts Legacy? Dead Space Remake? No. Forspoken? Definitely not, even though it's a brand new IP. What else? Callisto Protocol? Was that this year? I think it was. Resident Evil Resident Evil 4 Remake is probably the only other one that I can think of that could potentially be Game of the Year, but it is such a... It's a remake of an old game, and to declare Resident Evil 4 Remake as Game of the Year, I just don't see that happening. If that were to happen, that would mean that every other game that has come out this year launched in a terrible state. Star Wars Jedi Survivor could potentially be maybe Game of the Year, but I don't really think... I don't know. From what I've played of Jedi Survivor is a really good action game, but I don't think it has what it takes to be Game of the Year. Like, there's just something about it that's just lacking. And it's not because of all the issues that people are complaining about. Because you guys saw, when I played Jedi Survivor, I didn't have any problems. Now, granted, in Coruscant, there's a severe CPU bottleneck that happens no matter what processor you're running. But because I was running, like a new processor or a current generation processor, the problems were very, very minuscule for me. You guys saw on stream, I was doing like, in Coruscant, the worst we were seeing was like 50 FPS. It was like 50. I think there was some weird stutters during cutscenes where we would see it dip to like 45 FPS. So think about that. Coruscant, ultra settings, 4K resolution, everything maxed out on a 7900 XTX with a 7950X CPU. So remember, when I tested the game, I was testing with the standard 7950X, not the X3D, not the 13900, not the 13KS. No, I was doing the regular vanilla 7950X, and the worst that I was seeing was like anywhere from like 45, 50 FPS with everything maxed out in Coruscant. Now we get out of Coruscant and everything's fine. And there were multiple reviewers. I think Digital Foundry did a video talking about the same exact thing that I saw. And then not IGN, someone else did another video. I forgot who it was. It was one of the larger channels. Maybe it was IGN. Somebody did a video and they were saying that, like, you get out of Coruscant and all the issues go away. And I think they were talking about on the PS5, because it was like the same thing on the consoles. So Star Wars, okay, if Star Wars Jedi Survivor ends up being a contender for Game of the Year, that means that there's really not that many great games this year. I'm not saying that game is bad. The game is a good game, but I don't think that game just doesn't seem like a Game of the Year. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, it's a good game, but it's just not really, like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a Game of the Year. Hogwarts Legacy does feel like a Game of the Year because it's a new thing. It's not a sequel. It's basically a new IP. Obviously, the Harry Potter universe, whatever, but it's set in a completely different time. It's 1800s, whatever. It's its own story. Everything. It has cool, unique things that were never talked about in the books, like the ancient magic build and all that stuff, and you can choose to be good, you can choose to learn dark arts or whatever. So it's a really nice game. It has a pretty big open world, kind of like Witcher 3. So I don't know. I think Hogwarts Legacy is probably going to be Game of the Year unless Final Fantasy 16 or some other game just kind of shows up randomly in the second half of this year and just completely like takes top spot. So people forget about the launch problems. People act like Spider-Man is a perfect port. Yeah, well, okay, let's think about it for a second, right? Like the first major game that came out this year was Forspoken. Forspoken, in my mind, is still the new Crysis. I guess technically Cyberpunk with the new the path tracing patch. Now Cyberpunk is the new Crysis. But it's like, Forspoken came out, and it didn't matter like how good your computer was. You could have a 4090 max OC, max tune, everything. You could even have like a 7950 X3D. I mean, obviously this thing wasn't a thing when that game came out, but I'm just saying, like, you could build a computer with the most high-end hardware, max out everything, 128 gigabytes of RAM, max tune your GPU, everything, and you're still gonna be getting like 40 FPS. You're still going to be getting like random 40 FPS, anywhere from like 40 to 80, 40 to 80. It's like all over the place. Judder, stutter, everything under the sun. Like, and then if, you know how I was able to fix it? I literally bought a Gen 5 SSD. A PCI Generation 5 SSD to improve my FPS by literally 3 FPS. You guys saw the video. I uploaded a video comparing PCI Gen 3 SSD SATA SSD and Gen 5 SSD. And Gen 5 SSD literally raised the average FPS by like 3 to 5 FPS. So that's what happens when you run a game with direct storage, apparently. So direct storage games actually like rely on your storage speed, your input output of your storage to actually determine if the FPS will be really good. So, yeah, now we had a storage bottleneck. So that was Forspoken. So Forspoken was for broken, and then came Hogwarts, Callisto Protocol. Callisto Protocol I thought was kind of like, didn't that game also have issues? Hogwarts Legacy didn't really have any issues. Then there was Wild Hearts. Wild Hearts had like seizure-inducing issues, and they had to fix some of that stuff. But then there was also the DRM with EA, so that game's obviously not going to win, or it's not even going to get any awards. And then there was Dead Space Remake. We had Dead Space Remake. Well, you guys remember, if you go back and watch my Forspoken videos, my benchmark videos on Forspoken, what you'll see is that during the loading screen, you'll see the FPS like basically drop immensely. Like it'll dip and you'll see like massive frame spikes. And then as soon as it like goes back into the game, all that stuff like flattens out. So what you'll see is that Gen 5 storage basically minimizes those load transitions and stutters. So and that's just a function of direct storage being dependent on very fast input-output operations on the actual SSD going over the PCI bus via NVMe. So yeah, that's just how it is. Like that game was designed that way. So I find it fascinating because it's kind of like a window into how games could potentially be done in the future. Because PlayStation 5, like Spider-Man on PlayStation 5, already utilizes a similar technique. It's not direct storage, but it is similar. Direct storage is just like a Windows implementation of that. So, yeah. Well, yeah, the one thing that I never tested, though, I never tried to test a traditional hard drive. I didn't bother to test Forspoken with an old school spindle hard drive. So who knows what would have happened with that. But like the SATA SSD. The SATA SSD can't do direct storage the same way that the NVMe drives can. So there was something that was different. It's been too long. That was back in January. I've already forgotten what the technical reasons were for that. So, yeah, I don't know. All right, let's see. Redfall will win Game of the Year. Oh, Redfall. Oh, man, that's another one that I've already seen. Like, let's see. I don't know if I have an article for that one. Okay, let's finish up Hogwarts. But yeah, right now, Hogwarts is looking really, really good. The only other games, right, that came out after Hogwarts was Dead Space Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Wolong. Wolong is too niche. It's not going to win anything. I think Neo 2 was a better game. So, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed in Wolong Fallen Dynasty. I like those type of games, and that's kind of like the game that's sort of like the Elden Ring of 2023, if that makes sense. But it is nowhere near as good as Elden Ring. So yeah. And then there was Redfall. There, Meet Your Maker was a pretty good one though. Is it Meet Your Maker, or what's the name of that game? It was like Maker something Creator. It was like a shooter game where it's like you build levels and then like the other player has to clear your level. And I forgot what the name. I think it was Meet Your Maker or something like that. That game was a pretty good one that came out of nowhere. That one could win some awards, but definitely not Game of the Year. But it could be a like best indie game. Yeah, that one was a huge sleeper hit. There was another one too that there was like an Elden Ring clone or like a Dark Souls clone. Was it Forsaken? It had a name kind of like Forspoken, but I think it was like Forsaken or something. That game also came out. That was another indie game that was only made by like 2 people or something. But then there was some kind of controversy that they stole animations from Dark Souls or whatever. That game was okay. I never played it. I was thinking of playing it, but then ultimately I was like, yeah, no, I have too many games on my list already. So, but I like those type of games though. And then I'm trying to think, what was the other one? Okay, obviously for this month, or I guess April, Jedi Survivor. There's another one that I'm forgetting though. I mentioned Resident Evil 4. Oh, The Last of Us. I was thinking about it earlier. The Last of Us remake. The Last of Us remake is another really good one, but again, I don't see that one being Game of the Year because that one is just like really a game from like the end of the PS3 era and the beginning of the PS4 era. I don't see that one winning Game of the Year. Like, it's a really good remake, but no. This month, the biggest one will be. Oh yeah. Okay, so, all right. So I guess here let's just kind of make a list of games. Let's just make a list of games that are coming out for the remainder of the year. So I'll just do like a list of games that we already know about. So we had Forspoken was January. Then we had Callisto Protocol. Then there was Hogwarts Legacy, Wild Hearts, Dead Space. What else? Wolong. Resident Evil. The Last of Us. I'm not gonna list Meet Your Maker because that's too indie. Jedi. Or I guess it's Star Wars Jedi. No, I guess it's written like this. So I think this is kind of like where we're at now, right? Like these are the big ones. These are the big games that have come out so far. Big name games that were hyped up a lot and talked about a lot in the media. So I think obviously, Dead Island 2 was last month too. Dead Island. Yeah, Dead Island 2. Almost completely forgot about that one. And then Redfall, and then now we come to the really good ones. So, The Legend of Zelda. What is the? Is it just Breath of the Wild 2, or is there a name for it? Like, what's the title of this game? It's not. I know it's not Breath of the Wild, unless it really is Breath of the Wild 2. That'll be weird. Do we want to count like big games that are mobile? Because there's a big one that I want to write down on this list, but I don't know if it's appropriate. Tears of the Kingdom. Okay. Tears of the Kingdom. You still refuse to buy a Switch. I really want a Switch too. Why can't they hurry up and give me a Switch 2 that has DLSS 3? Give me a Switch that has at least DLSS 2 and I'll be happy. Because DLSS 2 doesn't matter for super high-end GPUs, or it shouldn't matter. It matters for lower-end GPUs and mobile devices. That is where DLSS 2 actually matters. Same thing with 3. Diablo 4? What is Diablo 4? So, okay. Diablo 4, I don't know when that's coming out, but there's also, don't forget, Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is coming out. Or is it 7? No, it's 6. Street Fighter 6 is coming out in June. And then the other game, the big one, at least on my list, Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 is my most anticipated game of the year. So the ones that I think are Game of the Year contenders are this one. And where is it? This one. Those two. Maybe, see, I don't know. If this is Game of the Year, I will be very disappointed. Legend of Zelda definitely is a contender as well. These are the ones that I think, like, those are the big 4 right now that stand out as potential Game of the Years. I don't know about Diablo 4 being Game of the Year. I highly doubt it. I just think that, I don't know, Blizzard is kind of, like, dead to me. That's maybe a little bit too extreme to say that, but I don't even remember. I think the last Blizzard game that I played was WoW Classic for the first month that it was out back in 2019. Like, I haven't played a Blizzard game since. So, and I'm probably not going to play Diablo 4. Star Fox. Wait, for real? When is that coming out? Oh, that's not a new game. What? That's not a new game. 1993. These are the big ones. So, if you're wanting to know what's on the horizon, you probably want to look up these 4 if you want to get an idea of like upcoming games. This game is literally, okay, for those who don't know, this game, hold up, I just want to write one thing. Oh man, this is the problem with using, okay, this game is actually called Game of Thrones. Just saying, like, it's actually Game of Thrones in disguise. So if you're a big fan of Game of Thrones, you're probably gonna like Final Fantasy 16. Just gonna throw that out there. Because people are probably thinking that I'm hyping up Final Fantasy 16 too much, and they probably don't really know what Final Fantasy 16 is all about. But if you like Game of Thrones, you're gonna like Final Fantasy 16. That's all I'm gonna say. So that's the reason why I think that once Final Fantasy 16... I know Legend of Zelda... So Legend of Zelda is going to come out, and that's going to give Hogwarts Legacy a run for its money. Definitely. But I have a feeling that when Final Fantasy 16 comes out, you know, then both of those games are going to be like, uh-oh, now we have real competition. So that's kind of why, the way I see it. I don't know. Resident Evil 4, I should probably, like, remove that one from the list. But that one is actually a really good game. And when we think about games that launched in a playable state without a bunch of broken bugs that required day 1 patches, Resident Evil 4 was one of those games that actually came out really good. It came out of the gate swinging. It didn't have any problems. It didn't have any crashes. It didn't have any, like, graphical errors or artifacts or issues or problems with AMD cards or problems with NVIDIA cards or problems with any certain CPUs or whatever, or old computers. Like, it worked fine for the most part. So, and that's a testament to Capcom's RE engine, because Capcom's RE engine has always been rock solid and resulted in very good visuals. Starfield is supposed to come out this year, but we already kind of know it's going to be a buggy mess. Who's the, is that Bethesda? All you gotta do is tell me who the publisher is, or who the developer is. If I know who the developer is, I can tell you if the game will be a buggy mess or not. That's how easy it is. I mean, you guys know me. I'm good at predicting things. I don't have any, like, insider knowledge, but I'm pretty good at predicting, like, how things are gonna end up being. So, Bethesda. Oh no. Oh, it's Bethesda. Yeah. Because okay, what's coming out in July? Is there any game launching in July, or is July just gonna be a month where everyone literally just gets roasted in the summer? Unless, I mean, if you're in the southern hemisphere, then it's probably gonna be in the winter. So I don't know. I know August. Actually, Lies of P. Lies of P looks very interesting to me. So where Wolong kind of disappointed me, or it was a little bit lacking. It was still good, but it's not like it didn't give me the same kind of wow factor that Neo 2 had. And if I'm honestly speaking, I also kind of thought that Wolong was very flashy combat, but I almost say that Stranger Paradise was more entertaining to play than Wolong. So I don't know. Immortal. Oh yeah, that game comes out in July. Okay, that's the game. I remember we talked about that one last week. Okay, so that one. Immortals of... Yeah, and I'm kind of somewhat interested in that one. So that's the July game. Alright, so I'm going to start putting these in the month that they're coming out. Lies of P is August. And there's another game in August that I'm forgetting. This one is June. Zelda's May, right? This one's this month. Redfall was literally this week, if I remember. Or last week. Dead Island was April. So I'm just going to go down the entire list. So this was January. Callisto was... I can't remember. I think it was also January. February. I can't remember if Dead Space was February. I think it was. And then, whoops, Wolong. Oh man, this is the problem with the gray background. I can't see where the cursor is, so it's really hard to type. Wolong was March. Resident Evil was March. Last of Us was April. Wait, was it April? No, I think it was actually March also. Yeah, that was March also. So literally like April was this one. Dead Island was April. Callisto was actually... Oh, Callisto was last year? That must have been December then. Okay, so if Callisto was last year, I gotta remove that one then. Okay, I didn't realize that. Yeah, usually, I don't know, usually for games, January, Q1, historically, the first quarter of the year is typically where a lot of developers, if a developer is not very confident in how their game will be perceived by the general public, they kind of throw it out there in Q1. And it's almost like the worse they think a game is going to perform, the sooner they just throw it out there. So like January is usually the month where a lot of like garbage games will end up. And as a result, look what's in January. So February kind of depends on release cycles as well, because sometimes games probably had an earlier release date, but they got pushed out further. I have a feeling Hogwarts Legacy was delayed multiple times internally. The same thing with Dead Space. Dead Space had a lot of frame stuttering, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember, what were the games that actually were good? Hogwarts was good in terms of like how smooth it ran and everything. It was hard. It's kind of hard to run, but you know, like the nice thing about Hogwarts is you could scale it down and it would improve the frame rate accordingly. Whereas some of these other games, like Forspoken, you can crank the visual quality all the way down to like medium, and it's still dipping to like 40 FPS randomly. So that's a similar problem that Star Wars Jedi Survivor kind of suffered from a little bit. if you had an older CPU. But if you had a modern CPU, like basically for Star Wars, if you had a Zen 2 or better, so like if you had like a Ryzen 3800X or like an Intel 10th gen, you would be fine with Star Wars Jedi. Like, you'd have that CPU bottleneck in Coruscant, but then it'd be fine. Just like all the newer CPUs. Forspoken was so bad it killed the developer. Oh, yeah. What happened to them? They got sold off, right? Someone else acquired them? Or, no, they got, like, reintegrated into the company or something. I forgot, like, Luminous Studios or whoever they were. Something happened to them. Yeah. You're right. So, that was bad. Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that. So, okay. I think Redfall was May. And then Diablo. Is Diablo 4? I mean, I can look it up. So Diablo 4 is June. June is Diablo 4. Just looking at it here. Alright, so Street Fighter 6 is also June, I'm pretty sure. June 2nd. So actually, Street Fighter technically is going to come out a few days before Diablo 4, but we'll just leave it like that. And then Final Fantasy 16 is also June. Where's the thing? Oh. Man, this is... Where's my cursor? This is also June. So, got a lot of games in June. Yeah, on the console. Is it on the PC now? I know there's one for the PlayStation 5. I could download it for the PlayStation 5. I'm not a big Street Fighter fan, though. That's the thing. Like, I really am hyped about Tekken 8. Tekken 8 is the fighter that I actually want to play. I don't know when it's coming out, though. It should be soon. They've got, like, all these characters. The only thing that's a little confusing about Tekken 8 is all their character reveals and their media tour that they recently did. It was all... They claimed the game... The footage for the game that they had was an alpha test. So I'm thinking, okay, if you're doing an alpha test, that means this game is not coming out anytime soon. Probably in the fall, though. Maybe Tekken 8 will be like September, October. Oh, it's on PC now? Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe, well... Let's see. Street Fighter 6. Oh yeah, the demo's available. Alright, let's try to download this. It'll probably make my stream lag, though, because it's going to be downloading. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll... we'll see. I have to install it somewhere. Let's see, where do I want to put this thing? It's only 16 gigabytes, that's not that bad. I guess I'll put it on... well, the M.2... I'll put it on the... what is it, Crucial P1 from Micron. I'll put it on that drive. That only has like 248 gigabytes of free space left, though. Okay, so we may test that out. Okay, Lies of P though. I don't know. That's kind of is this an indie game? I think it is. That one is very interesting to me though, and it looks like it's high budget. I think it's a Korean developer who made Lies of P. Lies of P, if it comes out I think it's going to come out this year. If it does really good, I didn't get that one game that came out, I think in March or something, for Forsaken. What was the name of that game? No, what was the name of that weird game? Forsaken Realm? I don't know what... I forget what the name of the game was. It was some Dark Souls clone that came out, and it got accused of, like, copying animations from Software or something. But there was there was that, and then there was Wolong, and then Lies of P. Uh-oh, another UE title. Another UE4 title. The stutters are going to be real. The stutters are going to be real in that one. Let's see. So, I don't really know what else comes out. If we want to make this my list, let's see. We are in May, so okay. So, wait, hold on. Was it last week or this week? Yeah, it's last week. So technically, there's another game that I want to add to the... Why does it keep on doing that? Okay. Honkai Star Rail. I'm just going to throw this one on here. Because it's technically on PC. I know it's a mobile game, but you can play it on PC. And it was April. And this game had like 20 million downloads in the first day that it was released. So... yeah, take that, Jedi Survivor, because Honkai Star Rail didn't have any of those stutter, like, CPU bottleneck issues. Now, granted, so, okay, it's like Star Wars Jedi Survivor is using Unreal Engine 4. Honkai Star Rail, Honkai Star Rail launched without any of those issues, with, like, CPU limited issues on Coruscant. It just came out swinging sci-fi environment, just like Star Wars. Get this. The game is made in Unity. The game is made in Unity. I feel like this is one of those, like, La Recitas meme videos, you know, like, where they'd be like complaining about, like, Jedi Survivor being essentially not trash, but, you know, like, having a lot of issues. People complaining about VRAM and system RAM, and then Star Rail comes out. It gets $20 million in the first 2 hours. And it doesn't have any of the bugs. It doesn't have any of the weird, like, stuttering issues. And the game is made in Unity. So, just saying. So, it's like, I'm pretty impressed with the amount of mileage that the HoYoverse team is able to crank out of that Unity engine. They're able to make a game that can give them billions of dollars in revenue within, like, 6 months or whatever. I'm pretty sure they're going to get there in, like, the first 6 months the game's going to be out. And they made the game in Unity. So, not that Unity's bad, but it's like everyone's all harping, oh, UE4 is so good. The movie industry uses it. Okay, well, you know, like, let's see a game that doesn't have stutter struggle or doesn't require me to compile my shaders every time I boot up the game. So, yeah. There was one other one. So for August, I'm going to go ahead and throw Genshin Impact 4.0. Is it 4.0? Yeah, 4.0. Fontaine. So the Fontaine story is also most likely going to be August. of this year. So that's not gonna win any awards, but unless they count expansions, like Fontaine is gonna essentially be like an MMO expansion. I don't know. The only other one that I can think of that's coming out is like way, way later. I think it's yeah, this one. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is like December. Hey, Met is here now. So he didn't miss all the news like last time. So we're still talking about the news. So we're just kind of, we started making a list. We're talking about like Jedi Survivor. Hogwarts Legacy got a huge update on May the 4th. And Star Wars Jedi and some other games. Honkai Star Rail has like new redemption codes or whatever. So then we started going through this list of games that are coming out. So these are kind of the big ones. Unity only reminds you of that stream of bad games that cost $5 on Steam. And that's exactly what my image of Unity was as well. Or like poorly made games that would run on the PS Vita. That's what I thought of Unity. Like, or maybe the PSP. Because I know like Unity could make... There were some games on PS Vita that were made in Unity that I remember. Yeah. So it's like we're getting a lot of Final Fantasy stuff. So Square Enix released their Dirty Laundry at the beginning of the year. They're going to release probably their biggest game in the middle of the year. And then they're going to release their, like their redemption game, I guess, at the end of the year. So the other one that I kind of think is supposed to come out this year, but I don't really know, isn't Final Fantasy 14 technically? I know hasn't been any announcements or leaks or anything. Usually the developers would talk about this, but it's like the 7.0 expansion. Technically should be Q4, maybe the end of Q3, but realistically probably Q4. Although I really don't like fall or winter releases for MMO expansions. I think that's a terrible time to release an expansion for a big budget MMO. Like, if you want to do it, release it in the summer. I know that because of the whole human malware, all that issues that happened for the last 2 or 3 years, that messed up their development cycle. That's what forced Endwalker to get pushed all the way out by like 6 months or whatever. So, because typically, if you look at Final Fantasy XIV, their expansions always come out in the summer. They're usually the end of June, early July. That's historically how it's always been done. Heavensward was that time frame back in 2015. Then we had Stormblood, then Shadowbringers, and then the only exception was Endwalker because of what happened with the development cycle getting basically delayed and stretched out. So it's been very good for Halo Infinite, Black Ops 3, Hogwarts Legacy at 14. Oh, you're talking about oh wait, you have a free... I didn't realize this. C6 has a free key for Jedi, but because of the weak lightsaber climbing puzzles, I haven't... you should still get it. It's still a good game, though. It's still a good action game. So... Oh, you... Oh, the 1600 XT, yeah. Yeah, no, I remember reading the Discord messages. Yeah, that card is a really good card for 1440p. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, like, there was a little bit of a discussion. I guess we can talk about that briefly. We'll just move this list over to the side. I think that's basically my list for this year. So you guys can see, like, in terms of games that I'm tracking, that's it. That's pretty much it. Oh, I forgot to put Tekken 8, but I don't know. There's 2 other games. I'm not going to put them on here because I don't know when they're coming out. But I kind of think Tekken 8 is supposed to come out, maybe Q4. And then the other one would be Blue Protocol. Somebody also mentioned Starfield, but I have no... Like, does Starfield have a release window at least? Do we know when that game's coming out? When I look at... Oh, it does have a release. September. That means it would be literally, like, right here. Wait, what? No. Whoops. What the... Why is this thing all messed up? September. I'll just put the... Well, no, I'm not going to do that. So you guys get it. So September for a Starfield. The only other one that I'm thinking of is Blue Protocol, but that's kind of like another MMO. And I have not heard anything on when that's supposed to come out. So I guess Genshin Impact it is in August. So he bought the Ryzen processor. You get games from buying the Ryzen. So like if you buy a Ryzen if you buy a Ryzen CPU, like a 7000 series CPU, you get Star Wars. If you bought the graphics card, like remember guys when I bought the 7900 XTX back in January, the reference card, that's how I got Star Wars. Oh, not Star Wars. The Last of Us. The Last of Us remake. So yeah. It's funny, a lot of these big budget title games that are usually shooter type games, I normally would have never purchased myself, to be honest. So it's like, if you guys see me playing those games, it's typically because it's some kind of either an AMD card, maybe an NVIDIA card, but usually it's an AMD card. Because there was one, wasn't there like an NVIDIA deal for a while, where if you bought, was it like a 4070 Ti? If you bought a 4070 Ti, they give you Redfall. I remember that was a deal. At least Micro Center had that for a while. That was a little tempting, but it's like, it's a shooter, and it's like, $100 of Steam credit for 4070. That could be enticing, actually. Yeah, that could be good. Because that's, yeah. Because that's it. But I think that's only Micro Center, though, right? Isn't it like a Micro Center thing? Or can you actually do that from Newegg? No, Joey. That's how it is for enthusiasts, though. Enthusiasts are always like the first people. We're always like the first ones in, and you end up having to go through all the teething issues. That's how it is. Like I'm so used to new hardware being like the problem with this is the thing that I'll tell people. Like if you're someone who is not, I don't want to say not technically inclined, but if you're someone who doesn't want to have to find workarounds for things, like for example BIOS bugs or limitations with the platform at launch, if you're someone who doesn't want to deal with that, you probably want to buy like last generation because there was someone. So one of my friends who I helped build the PC last year, I told this story. This is probably the third time telling this story, but I'm not going to tell the whole story. But basically, like he could have waited for AM5, so he could have waited like he. This was in May of last year, so this is literally a year ago, or maybe a little bit, almost a year ago. Probably like 2 weeks from now, it'll be a year from now, or a year ago. So I told him, because he was like, he was playing Amazon's MMO. If those who don't know what that game is, it's called New World. It's an MMO made by Amazon's game studios. So he plays New World. That's like the main game that he plays. And he was on a 4790K Intel Core i7 4-core 8-thread from 2014. Like that's his CPU. And the GPU is a GTX 1080 MSI Frozer whatever. the double fan. Yes, it was the game that nukes RTX 3090s. Yes, it's that game. He plays that game. That's like the main game that he plays. So he was playing that game, and he was telling me that when he does PvP, when he basically does the world PvP, his frame rate drops into single or, like 10 FPS, maybe single, like 5 FPS, anywhere from like 5 to 20, 15 FPS. When they're doing like PvP, and you don't want to be in single digits in PvP because you're probably going to die and you're not going to be very effective helping your team out, killing the other team. So it's like, yeah, you might want to do something about that processor. Because he was like, should I change my GPU? And I'm like, what do you have? GTX 1080? No. Like, that's fine. Like, the problem is the old Intel from like 2014 that only has 4 cores. Like by today's standards, that's a Celeron. So I'm like, yeah, it's not quite an i7 anymore, at least not by 2022 standards. So I told him, your options are, you can wait like a few months, because this was in May of 2022. And remember, guys, we did not know when exactly AM5 was going to launch. So the options were Intel Alder Lake, so 12th gen Intel, or my favorite one, Rocket Lake, 11th gen. 10th gen, I told him avoid that. It's too old. Don't get 10th gen unless you're buying like used or something. But it's like, no. And then the other one was obviously AM3 or AM4 with the X570 chipset. And here's the thing. So the 5800 X3D, that legendary CPU, had launched, I think it was like a week or two before he started asking me, like, what do I need to do about my PC issue? And it's like, I'm only getting like 10 FPS in PvP in like New World. So I told him, I'm like, okay, the best option, there's 2 options, I said. Like, you can either wait until, you can basically suffer for like the next, over the summer or whatever, because we didn't know when AM5 was going to come out. So I told him, like, AMD stuff is going to come out sometime in the fall, most likely. I said like October, September, somewhere around there was what I told him. And I didn't know exactly when, obviously, but I told him it's going to be like expected to be end of Q3 or sometime in Q4. And I think I remember saying October. So I was off by like a few weeks, because it was like September 27th or whenever was when it actually launched. So I told him, if you can wait until October, that's probably the smart thing. I said, otherwise, just get the 5800 X3D. And then I started thinking about what I was just saying earlier. I was like, okay, he's not the type of guy who wants to be an early adopter. So I said, the thing is, you could wait, and if you wait, you could probably benefit from a modern platform. So, like Gen 5 storage, etc., Gen 5 GPU support for whenever that becomes a thing. You'll get access to all of that stuff. However, if you want to upgrade now, the 5800 X3 is going to be the best option, because it's on a mature platform and you don't have to worry about like BIOS updates and all this other kind of memory, speed, compatibility, and Gear 1 versus Gear 2 mode and all that stuff that plagues DDR5 overclocking and all those sort of things. So I was like, if you just want to like just get a good gaming computer, 5800 X3D is going to be the best one of the year. And we went with that, and I helped him build it, and it was like, everything was good. So he was amazed, where it was like, all of a sudden, he went from like 15 FPS to like 85, 90, whatever. Like, he was basically GPU limited now after doing that. So then what ended up happening was, in the fall, you guys remember when the Black Friday deals were going on, he ended up getting a 6800 XT. Remember that deal that we were looking at on Newegg back when you could get a 6800 XT for like $500? It was like $535, and then there was like a $20 rebate, and it became like $515 or something. So $515 for an RX 5800 XT, or not 6800 XT. So he essentially got that. So now he has a 6800 XT. So now he can actually do like 1440p high refresh, and everything's good. So that was it. The only reason why, like, I was telling him to consider waiting was primarily what I told you guys in the video I did for the 7700X, because he was on a computer that was so old that he had DDR3 memory, meaning no matter what he was going to upgrade to, he would not only would he have to buy a new CPU and a new motherboard, but he would also have to buy new memory because he's on DDR3. So I told him, if you wait, you can effectively skip an entire generation of memory. You can go straight from DDR3 all the way to DDR5. Now, the only thing is you have to temper your expectations, because if you're going to go to a new platform, you're going to have to deal with, having to update the BIOS every month and all this other stuff. So that's kind of how it is, right? And I already knew that, because that's kind of how it was with Ryzen first generation back in 2017. Basically, you were updating your BIOS every month for like the first 6 months. So it's no different here. Although I think it's a little bit better with Zen 4, because I feel like the BIOS updates for Zen 4 have been not as necessary, if that makes sense. I feel like if you're on, as long as you're on like a Gisa 1005 or 1006, the experience is pretty much the same as like the older Zen 3. So in terms of like how fast my computer can post and boot just like the old 5800X. So, yeah. But yeah, New World, that was the game that was killing all the stuff. Did you do the BIOS update related to the X3D SoC issues? Oh, that thing. Yeah, okay, we can talk about that. So, I don't think there's an actual issue with that. I know that the only way that you can run into that problem is if you're overclocking the memory way outside of the... Basically, in order to run into that problem, I think you have to be running a... I don't even know if you have to have an X3D CPU. I think it could be any CPU, any AM5 CPU, Zen 4 CPU, but you have to be trying to run the memory at like 6400 or higher. You basically have to be overclocking the RAM, because the only way that you're ever going to exceed 1.3 volts on the SoC is if you're trying to run the RAM on like Gear 2 mode, which is basically like U clock equals half mem clock, and you're running the SoC above 1.3 volts. That's the only way, because it's like if you run the DDR at 6,000 or slower than 6,000, then you're never going to see that problem. Exactly. Yeah, me neither. And I'm not even running 6,000. I'm only running 5,600. So, yeah, no. I didn't really have to do anything. I am waiting for them to get like a newer Agisa though, like 1007 or 1009, I think is the one that they're aiming to release. Yeah, that only happens if you, like, let me see what my SoC voltage is running at right now. Because I'm currently on Agisa 1006, for those that are curious. Which is actually the BIOS that they say fries the CPU. Let me see. But remember, that's mostly an ASUS problem. And I'm not using an ASUS motherboard. So that's why I don't really see a problem with it. I'm trying to pull up the voltages here. So mine is like almost 1.2. It's like 1.19. So yeah. Yeah. The reason why that happens is because of the memory. It's all related to memory. And I knew, so what I have a feeling, I don't remember, guys, I don't have any sort of insider knowledge to this, but it was Asus and Gigabyte. I think it was just Asus, though. Was it really Gigabyte? It could be, but I all I know is Asus was the one, the Crosshair and like the other one, the Strix E-E and the Crosshair and the Crosshair Extreme. Those were the ones. The Hero and the Extreme and the Strix E were the ones that were doing that. What's up with Asus? Well, see, the thing is, Asus, I don't know. Asus historically has always tried to do things that I don't want to say that they're unnecessary. I just feel like they try to do things that don't always mean that they're better than the competition. So what do I mean by that? Asus tends to do a lot of their own. Well, no, let's not do Asus. Let's just say like Asus tends to do a lot of their own R&D on things, because compared to MSI, Gigabyte, and ASRock, Asus is way larger, like a much, much larger company. They have way more employees globally. They're just much further ahead in terms of revenue, so they can afford to have business units that develop their own products and stuff. So if you guys remember, Asus has been selling laptops for a very long time, way longer than Gigabyte and MSI. And I don't even think ASRock sells laptops, at least not in the North American market. Maybe they do in Asia. But the point that I'm making is Asus is a big company. They can afford to do their own sort of R&D on things. What that means is they can sometimes take a design and then they can have their own engineers tweak it and modify it and then kind of like ship it as a custom thing. So when it comes to CPUs and motherboards, Asus, I don't want to say infamously, but Asus, they will do things that are kind of like outside of the manufacturer's original, or I guess AMD and Intel's original specifications. So the best example I can give you is, I think it was in 2014. 2014, the Asus OC socket. I don't know. I bet no one watching the stream right now knows what this is. So the Asus OC socket, the overclocker's socket, was a custom socket for the Intel LGA 2011. Was it 2011? Or was it 2066? I forget the LGA pin count. It was basically Intel's X99. Intel's X99. Basically, the Haswell E. Haswell E. So think of that as like the i7 5960X. The first 8-core, 16-thread processor for the HEDT high-end desktop market. Asus developed something called the OC socket, and they were marketing this thing as like, you're going to get the best overclocking performance if you go with our motherboard versus the competition, because we have a custom design socket that was different from the other ones. So basically MSI, like if you bought an MSI or a Gigabyte or ASRock motherboard for X99 for Haswell E, you would essentially just get the socket that Intel made. And it's like they would just build that to the specifications by Intel. Whereas Asus did their own thing. And I remember listening to like JJ did some interviews on it with Newegg, and then like Dospara over in Japan also was talking about it. Like there were custom pins that Asus actually went in and they changed the function of what some of the pins on the socket actually do. So that means it's no longer going to run per Intel's actual specification. You remember gamers buying that chip and complaining it was not as fast. Well, first of all, That's like people buying Threadripper and then complaining that Threadripper's not as fast as like Ryzen in gaming. That's basically the same thing. So, but anyway, this is one example of like Asus doing something that may be fine, but you know, this requires a lot of testing and verification in order to make sure that it's going to perform or work as intended and not have some kind of severe flaw that results in a capacitor blowing up or something, you know. So no, I don't think you're doing anything that would cause that problem. But yeah, the problem everything that I know about that issue is it's all related to Asus not following the specifications for something called processor hot. So, remember when I talked about overclocking on Ryzen? There was the timing stuff, there was the memory stuff, but then there was also the safety features. So, one of them is a parameter, a control parameter called proc hot. It literally is a thermal it's basically a thermal control sensor. So basically it checks to see, is the processor too hot? It tracks the temperature of the processor against a known given table that says, hey, this thing is not supposed to be at this temperature. So essentially what was happening was there's two things. There was processor hot, and then there was man, this is really, I might have to go with the white background again. It's so hard. What was the other one? I think it was the one for the man, what was the parameter called? It's the one for voltage, and then there was the other one for the current. Basically, Asus was not like following two of these three, or maybe it was all three of them. Like their BIOS wasn't actually like following the rules. Like it wasn't enforcing these control signal parameters correctly. That's basically what it boils down to. So there was a couple of things. The processor was running too hot in a certain time interval, and then also the problem is when the temperature goes up, the amount of current leakage also goes up. This is something that I talked about in the stream where we talked about overclocking Ryzen using curve optimizer. So basically, if you have temperature and then you have current, as the temperature rises, so like for instance, essentially what ends up happening is you get this sort of behavior. So let's say this is the reference. This is like stock. Okay, this is the stock behavior, which what that means is that for a given temperature value, that will map to a current amount for the transistors. Now, the thing is, if the temperature goes up, if the processor gets hot, what ends up happening is, let's say now our temperature starts here. If the temperature is scaling up, then effectively it's going to be more like this. There's going to be some kind of overlap like this. Or it could end up being like this. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to illustrate here. So what you can see is if the temperature is running hot, it's not, meaning the proc hot control signal is being overridden or not being enforced. Now you're going to pull more current sooner rather than later. You're going to get more leakage. So that's basically what was happening. And when you're running, like if you're on this blue curve, you know, at a certain point, like maybe like here or something, that's where it's gonna be pulling too much current versus like the stock. And then as a result, you're gonna blow out like a capacitor or something. So that's essentially what was happening on the Asus motherboards. But in terms of like, have I done anything to... No. Like, I'm still on the same BIOS, haven't done anything. Been using the 7950X3D since February, like, what was the day it came out? End of February 28th, you know? And never had any problems. No issues. The stream where you guys saw me playing Last of Us, that was on that processor. I tested Jedi Survivor on it. It runs fine. Everything's fine. No issues. SoC never exceeds 1.2 volts. So, yeah. Can you cool 1.4 volts? Not with any standard liquid cooling or air cooling, no. It's too much. It's too much because it's basically... The thing that you guys have to remember is what I was saying here. So you can think of current as also voltage, right? Like the difference is that one of them will look exponential. When you do 1.4, so let's look at voltage versus current now. I want to flip these. So now we're going to do voltage. And then down here, we will do current. Maybe I should have done it the other way around. Well, anyway, let's just kind of draw it out. So if I'm doing... If I'm at 1.3... Or let's say I'm at 1.2. If I'm at 1.2 volts, my current draw at 1.2 will be something like right over here. So this is basically the point of how much current in milliamps. This could be, you know, like, I don't know what it actually would be, but let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say it's like 50 millivolts. Or, I mean, milliamps. Okay, so we're at like 50 milliamps. It might even be way smaller than that. I might be like, this might be way too much. But you guys get what I'm saying. So it'll all make sense. The same principle applies. If I now go to 1.3 volts, 1.3 volts. If I go to 1.3 volts, that is immediately going to require like this much current. Like it's way over here now. So now that might be like 150 milliamps. See, so now just by doing 0.1, the amount of current that I'm pulling through the transistors is way higher. Way higher than what it was before. Now, these are not the actual numbers in current. I don't know what the actual numbers are. But the point is, it's using way more current. So if you go to like 1.4, so if we go to 1.4, now the amount of current, well, I've drawn this kind of wrong. It's like it's upside down. I should have drawn voltage on the x-axis and current on the y-axis, because then it would look exponential. But now it's like the current draw is like way up here. So it's like out here now. Well, you guys can't even see it. It's like I'm covering it up. So I guess I should redraw this. But you guys get the idea. Essentially, like if we flip this around, let's do it the other way around. Because current, I want to draw current. I want to express current as a function of voltage, not the other way around. So basically, if I had, you know, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, the current would look like this. There, that's what you get. Which means at 1.2, you only need, you know, whatever this amount of current is. But at 1.3, now I need, you know, this amount of current, way higher. And then at 1.4, you know, now it's like way up here. You can see what's happening is if we go to 1.5, 1.5 is going to be like somewhere way up here. So it's going to need like a current value that's way up here. So it becomes exponential. Can you cool 1.4? Oh, that's what you're saying. You're asking him if he can he can actually cool 1.4. That is the thing, right? So the reason why the sockets were blowing up on those Asus boards was because they're pushing current that's somewhere in this window. Somewhere over 1.3, they're pushing a current value that's like somewhere over here. And what ends up happening is there's too much leakage and there's way too much temperature. The temperature goes way too high. And the problem comes from this thing not being enforced. By this not being enforced, it overheats and it just basically burns up the transistor. And that's the reason why the motherboard shows that burnout pin, and that's why the CPU essentially looks like it's swollen, or where the capacitors inside the transistors effectively blew up and they expanded. So and that's because the Asus BIOS was not enforcing the processor hot control signal, because this temperature is going to be a function of the voltage and current as well. As you have more electrons migrating down the hallway, all those vibrations are going to create a lot of heat. A lot of resistance is going to build up in the processor, as in the transistor, as a form of heat. And that's eventually going to cause the processor to fail due to high temperature. So yes, the answer, so if somebody has exotic cooling like LN2, they can easily run 1.4 volts all day long on the processor if the temperature is never exceeding, you know, like negative whatever Celsius, like it's below freezing. So at that point, you can go way up on the voltage because it's so cold that the temperature isn't going to overheat, and you're not going to get all those electrons causing all that heat and just basically like breaking the transistor. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't even think it was that big of a deal, to be honest. But that's basically how the problem happened. And I didn't really think too much about this problem. I just kind of derived the solution or the root cause just from talking through it with you guys. The root cause of the problem is too much current and too much temperature. That's basically all it is. It's typical classic case of how electronics die. Heat kills electronics. It goes back to what I've always said. Heat kills electronics. You want your graphics card to live a long life. You want its temperatures to stay low. Same thing with the processor. Same thing with any electronic device. Heat kills electronics. Classic case study with this BIOS flaw. This is essentially what this is. Is 90C too high? See, that's where it gets kind of controversial on a GPU. This is the thing. Like, gaming laptops, we don't do that here. Yeah, that's where I was going with this. That's what I was about to start talking about. I was about to start talking about laptops. Because this is the reason why I don't like gaming laptops, and I typically don't buy or... I will never advocate for gaming laptops because of this sort of thing. But, okay, what I'll say in terms of 90 degrees Celsius. So, like Joey's saying no. So, for average gaming usage, 90 Celsius is not going to kill your GPU or your CPU. It's not going to do it. Now, what will cause a problem is if you have high temperature, so, you know, like 90 plus Celsius, but then you also combine that with high, where's my mouse? High current flow. If you have high temperature and you have high current, you basically get a dead electronic, or at least you get a electronic device that's not going to live as long as it could. And the other thing too is duration. Duration does also matter. So, like, if you're playing a game, let's say you are playing on a gaming laptop, and it gets up to 90 degrees Celsius, but it's only like that for like no more than say 2 hours a day. Then it's probably not gonna be a problem. Now, if it's like that all the time, like for example, if you for some reason, like theoretically, if you had the GPU running at 90 degrees Celsius for like an entire year or like a very extended period of time, like, you know, several weeks at a time, then you're going to see the lifespan of that probably go down. Because the extended period of time where it's running at a high temperature, it's effectively going to have higher current flow through the transistors versus when it was running at a lower temperature. If you have a lower temperature, you have a slower, you have what's called less current flux or flow. If you have a higher temperature, you have more flux, or you have more flow of the current, of the electrons moving. You get electron migration. So if the GPU temp is already at 90, what's the hotspot? I think the hotspot's 90. I assume that's a hotspot temperature. So it could be an edge temperature. If it's an edge temperature, the hotspot's probably more like 100. Or maybe even like 105 or something. There's usually like a 15 degree delta between the hotspot and the edge temperature. So, but that's the main thing to keep in mind. And oftentimes what I have observed is usually when electronics run really hot after they're several years old, it's usually due to airflow restriction. So either the heatsink is caked in dust, or one of the fans has failed, or the case itself has very poor airflow internally, and it's just either starved for air. Maybe the dust filters are full of dust on the case or something like that, or it has poor airflow, or it's on a carpet and the power supply is like also being starved for air, so maybe the power supply is going to die as well. So there's like a lot of things that are kind of the reason why you can see 90 degrees Celsius on something. Just gives you a reason to, yeah, like planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is a very controversial topic, though. Probably more controversial than this, than what we've just talked about. $100 gigs limit per month. I also go game at friends' houses. Yeah, I don't know. Like, but see, sometimes people will do small form factor. But yeah, I get what you're saying, because it's way more convenient to have all of that in like one unit as opposed to a small form factor. But then you still have a monitor, and you still have to have the keyboard and all that other stuff. T-Mobile internet. Is that like, what is that, like 5G? Oh, is that like fixed wireless? Is that fixed wireless internet? Just gives you, yeah. I don't know. I still kind of think that small form factor is the way to go. It's LT. It's okay. So it's 5G. So that means you're doing like a hotspot. Oh, you have like an LTE card in the laptop. Oh, you got the SIM card in the laptop. I see. Yeah, well, that's basically it. So that's the explanation for what was happening with those. It's an overblown issue, to be honest. It's basically like this issue with the processor overheating on the Asus board, causing the transistors to expand and basically kill the processor. This is no different from the RTX 4090 cable melting fire hazard thing that we heard about several months ago now. Oh, it's one of those things. Okay, yeah, I know what that is. That's interesting. I had one of those like one time. Okay, so I know, yeah, because I know how that is. Because when I was in Japan, I lived like that. I had like the LTE thing and I had to use a laptop, and yeah, I'm very familiar with that lifestyle, so I get it. I get it, but you know, like most of the viewers are always talking about like tech enthusiast hardware and gaming laptops. I don't know, they just don't have that image of being tech enthusiast hardware. Doesn't matter how expensive the laptop is, it doesn't matter what's in the laptop. That's the reason why if I have to recommend a gaming laptop, it's only ever going to be like a 60 series card equivalent. So like RTX 3060 or whatever the new one will be whenever that shows up, or the AMD 7600M, or the, you know, whatever. Like that's essentially what I would ever recommend for a laptop. I'll never recommend like flagship GPUs in laptops because that is a meme. It's a joke. You basically are paying so much money for that number, the 9 or the 8 or even the 7, and it's never going to perform like a true 9 or an 8 or a 7. So it's going to perform more like a true 6. So, yeah. Let's build a small PC. What's the budget? Hey, there's the one that I built last time is still on here. I just pulled this up and it just showed up again. This thing showed up again. It saved it from last time. An RX 580 though. Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's like, yeah, no. That's why those laptops that have like 4090s and laptops, those things are such a joke and a huge waste of money. This is what I had last time, and it's like $700. Oh, but the only problem is like this thing is like no. It's way too old. But this is cheap though. Like this could game at 1080p without any issue. Well, okay, maybe it would. 8 gigabytes of VRAM for 1080p, I think is still good though. 7600 with a. Yeah. This thing could probably run. I know this computer can run Genshin Impact at 1080p max settings. Just saying. You can run all the gacha games you want with this PC, and you won't have any problems. I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know what type of games you play, but if you play gacha games, this PC will do everything. 6600. Okay, yeah. Let's get a real graphics card, not something from like 5 years ago. Okay, so you were saying the 66 for 220. There's one for like 200. I like how that's still there. That's still there. This one's basically the, hey, this is actually not that bad. This is actually a full XT for $350. Because remember, this is the retail price of the Intel Arc, and this card is faster than the Intel Arc. It's the triple model. It's the, yeah, it's a triple X, yeah. The collector's item. Do you know what's funny about this? I just realized something. This GPU is, it's XFX GTR. This GPU has the same acronym as my YouTube channel. The XFX GTR Triple X. How do I not have this thing in my GPU collection? Why do I not have this card? The Intel Arc will beat the this when it ages in the next year or so. Oh, where is the Intel Arc? Oh, there it is. So the Intel Arc has more VRAM. The thing is, I've been wanting to retest the Intel graphics card because they keep saying, like, I've been reading stuff. I think we talked about it in the last week's live stream, that they've been making some massive improvements with their driver overhead, supposedly, or that's what the claim, like, that's what those articles claim. So I want to see, like, how much of that is true and does it actually apply to the type of games that I actually play? Because, see, the thing that I've always said, so, like, the 3060, yeah, the 3060 is a card that is, like, what is this price? But look at this, though. Like, this thing is at the top of the list. This thing being at the top of the list means that it has more people recommending it. More people are recommending this graphics card over an Intel A770 and the AMD 6700 XT. Like, look at this. This one, the 6700 XT, is $10 cheaper than a 3060. Okay, this is a 12 gigabyte 3060. But it's like, okay, who cares? The rasterization on this card is, it competes with the 6600 XT. So it's like, we're talking about a card that's like a whole tier above the 3060, and it's like the same price or cheaper. Like, I don't get that. The thing to remember too, though, is the AMD cards don't actually get weaker. So yeah, the Intel cards can get stronger, but the AMD ones aren't going to get weaker. The NVIDIA ones technically do get weaker slowly. It's not much, but they do actually get weaker. Look at the GTX 780 and the 680 and those cards. Halo Infinite has been fixed on the... People that don't know anything about GPUs recommend 3060. Yeah, and that's so sad. That's so sad that people who don't know anything about GPUs will recommend 3060. So disappointing. Wow, it's so sad because it's like somebody who has this much money to spend could get a significantly better gaming experience across the board with the AMD card or even the Intel card. Like, let's be real, even the Intel card is going to be better than the 3060 in the long run. The reason people recommend a 3060 is NVIDIA Mindshare. Is it Mindshare, or is it just the fact that NVIDIA's name is more recognized? Because is Mindshare, is that the same thing, or are those two different things? maybe it's the same thing. Is mindshare equivalent to like how well known something is? My Intel Arc A770 is faster than a 3060 outrage. Yeah, I know that. That's what I'm saying. Like the 770 and the 6700 XT are faster than the 3060 across the board in general. So I guess they are the same thing. So mindshare is just basically how well a name is known. See, that's different from halo effect though. That's so okay, maybe I'm getting them mixed up. So the halo effect is something different. The halo effect is basically when you have a product that is basically the product that everybody wishes they could have, but not everyone can have that thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for instance, the RTX 4090 is a Halo product. The same way a Lamborghini is a Halo product. So it's like, you know, like car enthusiasts will wish they had a Lamborghini, but not every car enthusiast can get a Lamborghini. Same thing with the RTX 4090. A lot of hardware enthusiasts wish they could have a 4090, but not everybody can get a 4090. This is the thing that I think Nvidia knows psychologically. They understand the psychological aspect of having a Halo tier product. And that is the reason why they don't have a problem with continuing to raise the price each generation. Because this is something that I was thinking about earlier today. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this in the live stream, but I guess since we've gone down this rabbit hole, we might as well talk about mindshare and Halo tier products and how they're different, but how, because like for example, Apple, regardless of what your opinion of Apple is as a company or a hardware company or software company, Apple has Halo products and Apple has a lot of mindshare, but they're two different things because people who are not Apple fans will completely ignore the Halo products, like the iMac Pro or whatever the latest phone is. You know, I don't even know what the latest iPhone is. But the point is, like, people who do not care about Apple as a brand, they don't have any loyalty to Apple. They don't care. The Halo effect that Apple has with their products, people who don't care about Apple are completely immune to that Halo effect. However, they are aware of Apple's existence because Apple has a lot of mindshare, even though Apple doesn't have majority market share. The infamous $1,000 monitor stand. Yeah, see, the point is, you can be a company that does not have the majority market share, and you can still have a lot of mind share. You can still have Halo tier products. So, for example, Apple Linux, Apple's Mac OS, Mac OS X, that's what it's called. OS X, Windows from Microsoft, and Linux. Those are like the three most used operating systems globally. How do people perceive Mac OS? And then think about how people perceive Apple's operating system. Then think about how people perceive Microsoft's operating system. And then think about how people perceive... Linux is just kind of there, okay? So forget about Linux, for instance, because it's like so small, but at least in the consumer market. So if we're looking at Apple and Windows, so now we probably need to go back to Paint. So let's remove all of this stuff because we don't need this anymore. In fact, I don't even need this ASUS stuff. Okay, so let's talk about Apple and Microsoft. And then I guess we'll have a third one, Linux. So I don't know what the majority, what like the operating system percentages are. If someone wants to look that up, I guess I'll look it up. Market share. Okay, so as of February 2023, Windows, so we got Microsoft Windows, I should specify. We have Mac OS, and then what, Red Hat, you know, SUSE Linux. There's like a bunch of different Linux. We're just going to kind of ignore them for now. So basically, right now, according to the first thing that I'm looking here on Google, says 57.37% is Windows. Mac holds 29. That's actually a lot more than I thought it was. But 29% is a lot for a company that has a lot of like Halo tier pricing. But anyway, so let's just use these numbers for instance. Other than Linux and Chrome. Chrome actually is another one. Linux is actually smaller than Chrome, so I guess I should mention Chrome. Because Chrome is actually 7.47 according to this source, and then Linux is what was it, 2.55. Anyway, so the point is Microsoft is about, you know, roughly 60%, and Apple's like 30%, and then there's like a 10% in there with other. Okay, so here's the thing though: which one of these operating systems, which one of these two operating systems, or I guess let's just multiple choice question, chat engagement. Yeah, the Chrome one is probably from schools. Which one of these operating systems has the most kind of positive impression? Which one do you think people think of is high quality, or is the best? So I'm pretty sure if you ask the average Joe on the street or the average Jane, they're going to say Mac. They're going to say Apple is the best quality. Apple is superior to Microsoft Windows. So why is it that people will perceive Apple as better than Windows, despite the fact that Windows has more market share, basically double the market share of Mac? See, so this is the reason why mindshare and halo effect are two different things, but technically they are somewhat interrelated, because Apple has a lot of mindshare, and the halo effect may or may not actually matter, because people who ignore Apple, people like me, and probably most of the hardware enthusiasts who game on Windows desktops or gaming laptops, are using Windows. See, even Joey was saying Mac. So why is it then that Apple, who supposedly has a superior platform, why are they only, you know, less than 30%, almost 30% market share? And Windows is like almost 60% market share. Why is that? See, this is basically what I'm trying to illustrate here, is that you can have halo effect products and you can also have a lot of mindshare, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you will have the majority of the market. See? So yeah, because if we were to look at if we were to zoom in on the Windows desktop space and look at the GPUs, for example, the GPU market percentage, you would see a similar story, but it is the complete opposite narrative. See? So this right here, the point of me showing this is to prove that you don't have to be... You can't just have mindshare and halo effect to have majority share. NVIDIA incredibly has both. NVIDIA. So that goes back to where we were talking about this originally. So this is the whole point of the whole discussion is if you look at the GPU market, you have AMD, you have NVIDIA, and then, well, now you have the third one. Okay, so we're not going to talk about integrated graphics because if we're talking integrated graphics, then obviously Intel has the majority of the market. And then AMD is number 2 because NVIDIA is basically 0. Same reason VHS best beat out Betamax, even though Betamax was superior. Well, no, hold on a second. Is this actually superior, though? Is Apple actually superior, though? See, Beta being superior, you'd have to get into the technical differences between the two of them. But the whole point was, is this actually superior to Windows? Blu-ray won against HD DVD. I'm not saying Apple is superior. Oh, you're saying Beta was superior. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so two different things. You're comparing VHS. And I get what you're saying. Blu-ray won against it. Yeah, that's another example. But see, Apple has that kind of like mind share advantage, but it doesn't translate into majority share. So basically, what I'm saying is that the same thing could exist here. The same thing could exist here. AMD could have higher market share than NVIDIA, and NVIDIA could maintain Halo tier products and end up like Apple. Or AMD somehow could have Halo tier products, but they have less market share than NVIDIA because NVIDIA essentially would become like a Windows sort of de facto standard. See, so you could get that kind of scenario in the GPU market. It's interesting, though, to look at the GPU market because I feel like anyone who's studying like business, for example, like if someone's doing like a master's degree, like an MBA, I feel like a Harvard Business Review, there could be a lot of like case studies and articles that I can see that would show, like if someone was doing like a PhD dissertation on like business cases of how mindshare plays into how it's interrelated with market share. There could be a lot of cases that argue it both ways. Like, for example, what we just said, Apple has very good market share or mind share, but they do not have majority market share. NVIDIA has very good mind share. They also have the Halo tier products, and they also have majority share. So NVIDIA basically hit home run somehow, managed to win in like every way possible somehow over like 20 years. Actually, no, 30 years. I think in the future, NVIDIA will only be Halo tier GPUs for gamers and will sell mostly for AI and workstation, and AMD and Intel will sell the majority to mid-range in the next few years. Now you're getting to where I was actually headed with this discussion. But yeah, now you're actually thinking more along what I was going to say. So when I said earlier that NVIDIA has continuously somehow managed to ingeniously raise the price of their graphics cards every single generation, basically for the past 10 years almost, about 9 years, they've done this. They have raised the price. They have raised the ceiling on every generation of their products basically since 2014. So we will use the 80 and the 70. We are going to ignore the Titans and the 4090 because those are kind of like a different animal. We're only going to talk about 70 and 80 to illustrate this point. We might also include 60. But let's talk about how this has actually happened. So if we look, let's do 2014 Maxwell, so 900 series. GTX 980 Ti. How much did this cost? Does anybody remember? I think it was 600 or 649. I think it was 649. I think that was the MSRP. Someone will have to double check on that for me. But let's look at how Nvidia has jacked up the price every single generation and how they've always managed to pull it off. Now, it's been kind of small changes, but you'll see here pretty soon how this has actually played out in their favor. All the while continuing to build mindshare and somehow gobble up more of the market, despite raising the ceiling on their Halo tier products. And I think it's because of their Halo tier products that they have been able to drive up their market share. Because the problem is, everyone will look at a 980 Ti and they'll think, oh, it's so wonderful, but I'm obviously not going to spend that much money. I'm just going to buy a 960 or a 970. That's what most people did. Periodic element symbols are always read out letter by letter. You know what? $650 is correct. Okay. So, all right, let's do this one. This one, I believe, was $699. I think the price of this was $699. I don't think it was $749, but someone will have to check. Okay, and then we had the infamous RTX 2080 Ti, which was $1199. That one was the big one. Now, I am using Founders Edition. I'm using NVIDIA reference card prices. That's where these numbers are coming from. So this is a massive increase. Actually, yeah, that was... Okay, that's a massive increase. Because RTX 3080 Ti didn't actually change. That was actually the same price. So this was probably one exception where they didn't... this is the weird one where they didn't actually raise the price. But this was kind of a stupid market. Like, everyone will remember that... like, quite literally, it was a stupid market back in 2021 when the 3080 Ti launched in March of 2021. So that card is now effectively 2 years old. That's crazy to think that card's already 2 years old. And it had the same MSRP, but it's like no one really cared because no one could buy that MSRP anyway. And then until the very end of its lifespan, when it was clearance sale at Best Buy. Anyway, so then we have... well, okay, now, you know what? Now I can't... This kind of combo breaker, because we don't have this one yet. So, let's change this. Let's go with the 80 now. Because this doesn't really change much. So if we remove that, then... Where's my mouse? This becomes $549. This one is still $699. That one actually didn't change. And then 2080 was, I think, the same. Yeah, I think that was the same. And then this one was... Okay, hold on. So if we're doing this, it actually doesn't change. Oh, I know why. I have an explanation for why this one didn't change. So, okay. If you go by this, you won't see... you won't see the increase. But the reason why you won't see the increase is because when the 2080 came out, the 2080, when it started its lifespan, it started life as the second fastest GPU. Meaning, when it launched, the 2080 Ti launched alongside it. And that was the one, that was the Halo one that had the price increase. Likewise, with the 3080, this one literally launched a month before 3090, which had that, you know, $1,500 price tag. So the reason why these don't show that increase is because they launched very close. In the case of the 20, these guys launched together. They launched together, which means the 2080 The 2080 was never a Halo product to begin with. The TI was the Halo product, and that was the one that had the huge price increase. So the 1080 Ti is different because the 1080 Ti launched like about a year, almost a year. It was like 9 or 10 months after the 1080. So that's the reason why. Likewise, the 3080 Ti was also, like several months after the 3080 and the 3090. So the 4080 launched after the that's why the 4080 is not perceived as a good product, because it launched after. So we talked about this in a previous stream. The reason why the 4080 is a huge flop and the 3080 was, everybody wished they could have one, was because 3080 launched by itself first, and Nvidia was able to drive up hype for that product, so everybody actually wanted one. What they failed to do with the 4080, and I'm pretty sure they've learned their lesson, although I don't know if they really learned their lesson because they discovered something in this process. So by experimenting and turning around the launch window, basically what they did was, we'll do the big boy first and the little brother second and see what happens. So basically what they did is they killed the 4080. By making the 4090 go first, the 4080, it's like, how are you supposed to follow that act? You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it, like they're at the Olympics, they're going to be doing their ice skating routine. 4090 goes out there, does its quad flips and spins and all this stuff, and it gets like a perfect 10 from the judges. Oh, look, there's your gold medalist right there. How is the 4080 supposed to follow up that act? It can't. It can't do it. It's going to fall on its quad, spin, and land on the ice. And that's basically what happened. So that's why nobody talks about the 4080. You never hear anybody talk about the 4080. They only ever talk about the 4090. They only wish they had a 4090, despite the fact that there's literally like a $400 difference between the two of them, which is like the price of a PlayStation 5, pretty much. The one without the disc. The reason the 3080 sold well wasn't that it released first. It was the price that made it a good value, and it had only 15% slower performance. Yes and no. The price was $700, but the reality was you could never buy one for $700 if you missed the launch window. It doesn't matter which one came first, because if you can't afford a 4090, you're going to buy it. If you can't, you buy the 4080. I don't know about that. That sounds kind of flawed logic. I don't think a lot of people that are considering buying a graphics card think that way, though. I mean, maybe, but it's like, that's kind of like, I don't know. That's like buying like that's the difference between like saying someone should buy a Tesla for like $50,000 versus like buying a Honda Civic. Well, okay, maybe not a Honda Civic, but you get what I'm saying. It's simple money. What can I afford? Maybe, I don't know, because I don't think a lot of people think about graphics cards that way. Maybe they do. In the enthusiast market, I think they do, but I really don't think the average gamer thinks that way when it comes to graphics cards. And maybe Met has a good point. The fact that the 4080 has like a massive $1,200 starting price, that's going to turn away a lot of potential buyers just because it's priced way too high. How many people can afford a $1,700 graphics card? Very, very few people. Very, very few people. Like within the gaming, because okay, think about what the 4090 is supposed to be for. You'll get people that say that people should not be buying a 4090 to play games. People should be buying a 4090 for production, for prosumer work and all this stuff. That's complete nonsense. Yes, you can buy one for that, but I don't think that's what that card was intended for. It doesn't have support for CAD software. It doesn't have like supported drivers for that sort of thing. So I don't care what people say when it comes to trying to market the 4090 as a production workstation product. It is not a production workstation product. There is a whole reason why NVIDIA has Quadro professional cards and that sort of thing with certified drivers for CAD programs and those sort of things. So the 4090 is still considered a gaming product. The problem is, if you look at the gaming market, if you look at like what people actually can afford within that giant pie of the gamer demographic, what you'll find is probably less than 3% of that entire market can afford a 4090, and that's assuming that they would actually somehow manage to justify or convince themselves or convince their significant other or whatever the case may be to actually fork over that much money just so they can play video games. I mean, how is that going to look to a lot of people? You know what I'm saying? You're saying releasing the 4090 first killed the 4080 sales. It certainly stole the spotlight from the 4080. So here's the thing, guys. Imagine if the 4080 launched first and it still kept its $1,200 sticker price. If the 4080 launched first, the marketing hype would still be behind it. You'd still have people that would camp outside Micro Center to get one on launch day. You'd still have a lot of that hype. You'd have people like UFD Tech go and drive 4 hours to Micro Center in Ohio and camp outside. Like, you'd have people doing that, and they would be driving up hype. Social media would be all over it. Yes, it's expensive, but it would still be like a thing that people would desire. By putting it behind the 4090 and the fact that it's not as fast as the 4090, you basically kill all the hype for it. So it basically kind of just falls off into obscurity. That's essentially what happened. Yes, it still would have sold because everyone would have said that it's faster than a 3090 Ti and it's less money. That's how they would have played it up. That is exactly how NVIDIA would have marketed it, guys, because you're forgetting that when NVIDIA launched the 1080, what did they say about the GTX 1080? Faster than a 980 Ti. Faster than a 980 SLI. That's exactly what Jensen Huang went up on stage and was saying the whole time when he was holding up that GTX 1080. $699 Founders Edition. It's beautiful. It can overclock to 2 gigahertz. You guys don't remember, but see, that's how it is. Exactly. They would not. So basically, if they launched 4080 first, they would not have launched 4090 like 1 month after. They would have waited until the end of the quarter or the end of the year, and then have launched it in December or January. That's when they would have done. Probably December because it's still holiday season. But yeah, like that's what would have happened. The 4080 would have been in October, and the 4090 would have been like Thanksgiving, Black Friday, like around that time frame. Yeah, see? And OC at 31, yeah. But see, that's the thing. But like, no, they didn't do it. They did it the other way around. They launched the 4090 first, and it's like, okay. Basically, what they did was like, here it is, guys. Goku goes Super Saiyan 3. Here's my 100% of my true power. Nothing else I have can match this. And it's like, there you go. That's it. Basically, NVIDIA went all out at the beginning and just destroyed their entire show because it's like, okay, now it's like, cat's out of the bag. 4090 is the fastest card you've got, and that's the first one that you show. Okay, now nothing else matters because it's like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So There must be some other like strategy behind it. Maybe it was to clear out excess inventory of the 3080 and all the other Ampere cards. That might have been one of the reasons. The 4080 and 4090 have massive overclock headroom compared to the 3000 series. That would make the 4090 sales better than they would have been. What? What? What would have made the 4090 sales better than if they launched after? No, I don't think it would have. The 4090 sales would have stayed the same no matter what. The 40s. So, okay. Regardless of when the 4090 launched, no, it would not have changed anything. Are you saying, okay, are you saying if the 4080 went first, the 4090 sales would have been better? Because the answer to that is no, it would not have been better. It would not have changed. 4090 is in a certain price product. It's in a certain price class. 4090 is in a price class where it's kind of like, at that point, it's like, think about how much other things you could buy with that much money. Now you're having to weigh the pros and cons of like, you know, what's the opportunity cost of spending that much money on one component of a computer? No, releasing 4090 made the 4090 sales better. I don't think it really. No. See, I think releasing the 4080 first would have made the 4080 sales better. But releasing the 4090 first or second doesn't really change the narrative or the result of the 4090 sales regardless, because you have to remember at launch the 4090's supply was all still kind of limited, so it doesn't really matter. They would have sold out regardless of whether it was first or second. The other thing is the 4090 is so expensive that, again, we're talking about a less than 3% of the entire gaming market, even considering that card. So that's the other piece of the pie. So, I don't know. Do we want to look at the 70 stuff? Because the 70 stuff might actually show more insight into what's happening here. So if we look at GTX 970, this was $329 was the MSRP. GTX 1070 was $379 slash $449. That was the Founders Edition one. Because this one technically never actually sold at that price either. This one was actually more like $369 was typically what it sold at for most of its life. That was the average selling price. And then the, why is this like this? RTX 2070 was, I think it was $399? Or no, $449? I don't remember the 2070. The 2070 is the one that, like, I never paid attention to that card. So someone's going to have to look that one up in terms of what that actual MSRP is. And then this one was $500. And then we have the infamous 4070 at $599. This actually, I think, is a better, more illustrative picture of what has happened. Looking at the 70, looking at the middle is actually more of like, this more accurately illustrates what I was trying to talk about in terms of how NVIDIA has managed to raise the ceiling on their price points with each generation. Now I kind of want to know what the 2070 was, because I don't know. $499. Oh, it was really that high. Okay, it was that high. So that one didn't actually change. Whoops. Why do I keep... Man, I don't know if I can keep doing the gray background. It's like super hard to... Anyway. Okay, so there was no actual change between these two. That is interesting. The 2070 was that expensive? Man, rip anybody who like paid that much money for that card. That's robbery right there. Anyway, the point is, I think this more accurately illustrates how the prices have crept up over time. Now, the AMD ones, if we look at those, I don't know if we're going to see the same kind of power creep in terms of the pricing changes. I think what we'll see is they probably are a little bit more stagnant. So how far back do we want to go though? Because it's like, I guess RX 480 was 249, I think. And then there was RX 580, which was, I think it was like the same. Man, I don't know. The AMD ones, they had so many name changes. RX 580 was 229. Okay. Actually, I think the 480 was the same. Yeah, this one, 480, was the same. So that actually was no difference. But technically, these were kind of a rebrand, because this one was like a more mature process, but it was the same GPU die. So then, what was after that? There was like a RX 5600. It gets kind of weird because they kind of were wandering around in the wilderness for a while. Wasn't the 580 just consuming? Yeah, it was like a more modernized 480. Didn't have the leverage that Nvidia did to increase pricing. Man, what was the price of this thing? I don't even know. This one was $279. Okay, this thing was $279. And for those who are wondering, like, what's the difference in performance between a 580 and a 5600 XT? A 5600 XT is roughly as fast as a Vega 64 and a GTX 1080. That's kind of like how fast this thing is. And then there was the 6600 XT. Let's see, where is that one? $379. Okay, they are going up. They are going up too. This one was $379. And then there's the upcoming this thing. So, yeah. Okay, obviously this stuff is not equivalent to the NVIDIA 70s. This is more like NVIDIA 60s. But you guys get the idea. Like, there has been power creep as well. Maybe we should look at the NVIDIA 60s. This thing was it was 200 something, I don't remember. GTX 960. $200, $199. That was $199. Then there was this one, which was $299. Then there was the 2060, which was, I have no idea. $349. Okay, so they are going up kind of not as huge increments as the higher tier. It makes sense. So what it looks to me is like the mid-range, you can see the increase in the price, but it's not nearly as bad as the higher end. The higher up you go in the performance stack, the more you are a victim of like power creep in terms of the price increases. This one was how much was this one? $399? No, that's the TI. It's funny, no one knows how much this card costs. Whoa, this one was really $329. That's weird. That one actually has a price regression. I wasn't expecting to see that, but anyway, that makes sense. And then we have that. So either way, you're seeing like price increases. The one exception, 3060 was really that cheap? I know the 3060 Ti was $399. That one I remember because Best Buy had drops on that a lot, and that was the one that like all the Ethereum miners kept buying. You just got a midstream ad? Wow. What does that do? Does that show me still talking or something? You got a midstream ad? Wow. So this is essentially, I mean, it kind of, the point still stands. It just pauses the stream. Interesting. So that's it. So you can see, like, regardless of whether we're talking at the upper end of the market or the lower end of the market or the middle of the market, there have been price increases with each generation. And AMD is also the same. Like, it's not like NVIDIA's the only one that's doing this, but the NVIDIA ones are far more noticeable, especially at the upper end of the market. I guess one thing I will say about the AMD one, it's hard to see the AMD increase because AMD didn't actually have anything that was competing with NVIDIA's like 80 Ti product for the longest time. Like from 2015, well, okay, from 2016 all the way until 2020. So like 4.5 years, they basically didn't compete with NVIDIA, with NVIDIA's like Halo tier product. That's the reason why you don't really see the AMD price increases, because like Vega 64 was $549, and then Radeon 7 was like $699, and then there was like nothing, and then you had 6900 XT for $1,000. That's basically it. So it's like, yeah, AMD's ones did go up too, but AMD never actually had like a thing that was really, you know, that crazy high end. Like they had a high end GPU, like an enthusiast high end GPU. NVIDIA prices never fall that much though. AMD on the other hand, yeah, the AMD ones, like you can get the clearance deals on the AMD cards. The NVIDIA ones, they don't do that, and that goes back to what we were talking about with the mindshare. That's because random people who don't know anything about computers will just recommend like a 3060. So a 3060 will sell for $350 versus like an Intel GPU or an AMD 6700 XT, as we just saw on the PC parts picker. Hey, software. I don't know if I should call you software or if I should call you tools. Or if I should just call you software tools. Or ST. But if I keep saying ST, I'm going to think Sunken Temple from WoW. I don't know why. But like that's the acronym that I'll think of for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of it, right? Like the pricing with the GPU stuff is kind of expected. It's just everybody's complaining about like NVIDIA's 80 and 70 stuff being so expensive. And rightfully so, because realistically, like these are the ones that people would buy. Like these are the ones that people would actually buy. And look at the difference. If somebody bought a 1070 for like 300, like let's say $400. If someone bought a 1070 back in like 2016 or maybe 2017 and they paid like $400 for it, now if they want to upgrade because they thought, oh, you know what, I'm just going to skip some of these generations and get some mileage out of this GPU. Now, if they're looking at the 4070, it's like, what? This thing is, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, wow. Do you know if you can use more power tool? More power tool? I've never used more power tool. I don't even know what that is. What's more power tool? More power tool? Oh, that's Igor's. Is that Igor's BIOS editor? I've never modified VBIOSes before. I've flashed VBIOSes before, but I've actually modified them. It literally says the first result in Google says Red BIOS editor and more power tool for Polaris, Navi. Oh, but you're asking if it works on RDNA 2. I have no idea. I've never done that, so. Community-driven more power tool for AMD GPUs will not support RDNA 3 GPUs due to hard lock. So, let's see. I guess it works. Yeah, I think it works on RDNA 2, but it doesn't work on RDNA 3. So, there's this tool, more power tool for AMD GPUs will not support RDNA 3, but I know you're asking about the 6900 XT. But it says right here, the 6900 XT had a frequency limit up to 3 gigahertz, which was slightly expanded with the 6950 XT, and further to 5 gigahertz. Wait, what? No, hold on a second. What is this? Isn't this? But these cards had a hefty premium attached to the. Oh wait, no, this is the H. The XT. The 6950 XT is the K. That's right. So if you wanted to get the best overclocking chip, you had to pay more. Now RDNA 3 is virtually locked everything as reportable. So I don't know. I guess it works on it because this isn't saying that it doesn't. I have a 900 watt Asus VBIOS on the 3090 Ti. Any of those names works for me? Okay. You can't reach 3 gigahertz on RDNA 2. I was just wondering if I could get a higher power limit. How fast do those cards go again? I don't even remember. Are they like 2.6 or something? Or 2.5? Somewhere around there? Oh, okay. Those AIB RDNA 3 already consume up to 500 though. They do? Oh, you mean if you yeah. If you're overclocking them, yeah, because they're triple 8-pin, right? So that's 450. Yeah, it's wait, hold on. 150, that's 300, 400, yeah, 450. 450 on the triple 8-pin. But that's like if you're really overclocking it though. Let's see. Wait, what is this? Rumor. Oh, this is not new. Never mind. 4060 Ti custom cards with 8 gigabytes and one. Man, people are doing this to just kind of like kill hype. This is what I mean by like people are trying to get a reaction for views by purposely making something sound like they're playing on the fact that there's all these games that use lots of VRAM, so there's a lot of media talking about 8 gigabyte graphics cards being DOA, and no one's gonna want those because all the games are requiring, more than 8 gigabytes. That's only really true if you're playing at 1440p or 4K. As far as I know, if you're playing at 1080p, you're probably still going to be okay at 8 gigabytes. But I don't know. Who is this for? Like somebody who has who would actually buy this? I'm trying to figure out who would actually buy this. and someone who is going to stay on a 1080p monitor, and they're probably on a, I don't know, like an old GTX 1060 or something. Like something super old. Because from my experience, people who have 60 tier graphics cards tend to upgrade slower, or they have a longer, they don't upgrade as frequently as someone with a higher end graphics card. Now, I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but from my experience, what I've observed with other people is that the higher end your graphics card is, the more often you actually upgrade. It sounds counterintuitive because you would think that your higher end graphics card will be relevant longer, but realistically, people who spend no more than, say, $300 on a GPU, they're going to keep that thing for a really long time, you know, at least 3 years, if not longer, more like 5 years. So most people that I saw use their 3060 Ti with 1440, so I think that's not good. All I can say is that's not good. That's not what I want to hear. I don't want to hear 1440p and 8 gigabyte graphics cards in the same sentence, because that's actually going to make this be a dead on arrival. That's going to make this thing fail. Oh no. If that's real, if what you're saying is true, I don't know, because I still think that there's a lot of people on 1080p and they're on like 60 tier cards. 2066 gigabyte. 1060 was 6. 2060 was 6. 3060 was the one that had the 12 and the 6, and you know, like most people that I saw use it. Yeah, the Intel Arc has doubled the VRAM and is going to. How much do we think this is going to cost? Do we know? Like, we could probably figure it out. If the 4070 is $600, then this is going to be 500, 450, 500. Remember, the 3060 Ti was $399. The MSRP was $399 on the 3060 Ti. So this thing is probably going to be like $449 or $499. Although, I don't know, man, $499 on a 60 series card, that sounds so bad if that actually ends up being the price. $450 and throw Redfall. Throw Redfall in, yeah. Okay, Redfall. Oh man, that sounds so terrible. So, okay, now I just thought of something that I forgot to finish that point on when we're talking about Apple and Microsoft and stuff. So, like, Matt made a good point that eventually NVIDIA will just be a bunch of, like, Halo tier products and, like, AI GPUs for data center and stuff. And then AMD and Intel will be selling the gaming market cards. See, I don't know if that's obviously, maybe that's the long-term goal or the long-term strategy for the company, for NVIDIA. I don't see that happening anytime soon, though. Like, at least not within the next 6 years. So, meaning you can expect there's going to be like a 580 and a 6 or a 5080. A 5080, that sounds so weird to say, and a 6080. Like, I expect it to be a 5080 and a 6080, maybe a 7080, but then after that, I don't know what's going to happen, because maybe they are going to go all in on, like, enterprise and data center and AI and self-driving cars, and who cares about gamers, you know, like, they're the low-margin market anyway, so maybe that's the long-term goal, right? Because NVIDIA can only push the price up to a certain point because they're already kind of reaching a breaking point, as the 4080 has kind of proven in its lackluster sales. Like, it's not really done well compared to, like, 3080 and all the other 80 cards before it. So because it's priced so high, I kind of think that they're not really going to change the narrative. I think they're going to basically, like, the way I see it is 4080 Ti is probably going to be like 15, no, well, 15 is too close. Maybe $1,400 or 1449, and then 4090 Ti. 4090 Ti is going to be like $2,000. It's going to be like $1999, the same exact MSRP of the 3090 Ti. So, yeah, that's going to show up. And then, so they're going to hold that $2,000 like ceiling for their Halo product for a while. And then obviously, you know, like the 5080 comes out next year. The 5080 is going to probably be like the same price as the 4090, or maybe it's going to be like $100 more or $150 more or whatever it ends up being. But the point is, like, they're slowly going to creep themselves up to like stay at like $2,000 on the 90 Ti, and then they're going to slowly start trying to break up above that to, you know, they're going to try to approach $2,499. The goal is $2,499 or $3,000. Like, they're going to want to do that. Which do you think is the better bang for the buck? 4070 Ti or 4080? They're both kind of bad. There will be already another GPU well, they're not kind of bad. They both are bad. Will there be already another GPU generation? If I had to tell you, if I had to answer you, Joey, like 4080, 4070 Ti is stupid because it's 12 gigabytes of RAM for like an insane amount of money. That's just garbage. So that's the reason why, yeah, no. At least the 4080 has 16, but, you know, like, that looks bad, like, compared to the 7900 XTX. So, you know, like, that's why it's terrible when I have to evaluate both of them. But yeah, like, objectively, the 4080 is better, but it's like, yeah, you're paying, what, like $400 more for that extra you're basically paying like $100 more for 1 gigabyte of RAM each. How do I figure they're bad? Their price. Their price, and for what you're getting. There will already be another generation next year. Yes, next year is the 50 series. So this thing, I don't know, another 8 gigabyte card. I mean, I knew it was going to be an 8 gigabyte card because there's no reason, like, it's so obvious. The 4070 and the 4070 Ti are the 12 gigabyte cards, so obviously these are going to be 8 gigabytes. So, because it's easy to figure this out. Like, you don't need any hardware leaks to figure this out. All it takes is critical thinking. It's literally critical thinking. So it's like, think about it like this. 4080 Ti is 16 gigabytes. 4080 is also 16 gigabytes. 4070 Ti is 12. 4070 is 12. So naturally, what's the pattern, guys? If the 80, it's a proportion. If the 80 is 16 and the 70 is 12, that's a difference of 4, which basically means that this thing is going to be 8. And this one is probably also going to be 8. If they're not going to do a 12, maybe they are going to do a 12. I don't know what's going to happen, but the reason why they did a 12, the reason why there was a 306012 was because of Ethereum crypto mining. That was the reason. Because NVIDIA was expecting crypto to stay as it was, and eventually the DAG file size was for Ethereum was going to continuously grow to a point where 8 gigabyte cards would be unviable long term. So, because remember what happened with Ethereum when it went past 2 gigabyte DAG file, it went past 4 gigabyte DAG file, and then 6, and, you know, so 8, right? Like, 8 was kind of the thing where people were like, oh man, how good are those 8 gigabyte GPUs going to be long term for Ethereum mining? Well, eventually they're not going to be viable. So that's why they're like, okay, we're just going to do a 12 gigabyte 3060 because all the crypto people were buying mainly 3060 to 3070. Like those 3060, 3060 Ti, and 3070, those are the 3 most popular NVIDIA cards for mining crypto back during the crypto wave. Like, this is well understood. And that's the reason why there was a 3060 12 gig, because that one was immune to the DAG file going beyond 8. So it's so ridiculously obvious. Like, there's no other explanation as to why they would have a 12 gigabyte on a 60 when a 70 card has only 8. The fact that a 3060 had more VRAM than a original 3080 with only 10, something's fishy there. There's obviously some kind of motive behind that. A technical reason. The reason being crypto, not gaming. The 4080 should have had 112 SMs and 20 gig VRAM on this. The crypto people were ahead of us in the whole VRAM debacle. Oh man, that's another excellent insight. You know, like I didn't even think about that. The crypto people were always one step ahead. They were always one step ahead of the gamers. They were always the ones that Asus, MSI, basically everybody who was selling custom AIB, like they preferred to sell to the crypto people than the actual gamers. Because think about it like this. If I'm MSI, imagine that I'm MSI, or what, it doesn't matter. Just imagine that I'm MSI, and I'm trying to sell my 3060 12 gigabyte cards during the human malware, during the supply shortage issues, during all of the dark times. Just pile it all on, all the dark times. It's basically, let's say it's October 2021. The year is 2021, the month is October, I'm MSI, and I gotta sell my 3060 12 gigabytes. Would I rather sell them each individually to like Newegg and Micro Center and all these people that are trying to get like bulk orders who are gonna sell like 1Z, 2Z units to individual consumers? Or do I want to process a bulk order of like 200 GPUs to some company in Iceland who is mining Ethereum, and they can give me the money right now. I don't need to like do rebates. I don't need to do like any kind of incentives for Newegg and, you know, offer all these things and go get these Redfall codes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just gotta sell these GPUs. I don't need to give them games. I don't need to do any rebates. I'm just gonna sell these 200 GPUs, 2,000 GPUs, whatever it is, to this one company in Iceland, and they're gonna like give me the money, and I'm gonna be good. I'm just gonna ship them all the GPUs. I don't have to do anything, warehousing stuff for Newegg, all this stuff. So bottom line is, the crypto people, they had priority. They were like the favored customers over like gamers. 100%. 100% true. Way, way easier to sell. Done deal. The difference between selling a GPU to the crypto in Iceland versus selling a GPU to some, you know, some random gamer who wants his Redfall Steam code or his Hogwarts whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like his Forspoken, he wants to play Forspoken so badly. So he bought an AMD GPU so he could play Forspoken, you know what I'm saying? Like, the difference between selling to the crypto versus selling to the gamer is like, if I am trying to sell a house, if I'm going to sell the house to a gamer, they want to inspect the house, they want to do like an FHA loan, they're going to put like, you know, 3.5% down. They got to get their credit approved. They got to do all this stuff. I got to wait. Oh, man, I have to hold this deal. I can't close. Versus if I'm going to sell to a crypto, that's like a guy walking up to me saying, hey, I'll give you cash for that house right now, and we can close tomorrow. Just saying. That's the reason why crypto buyers for MSI and Gigabyte and Zotac and all those boys was basically cash buying houses. It's basically like, it's like buying a house in cash versus like someone trying to buy a house on a mortgage. Gamers are like people trying to buy a house on a mortgage. Crypto people are like people trying to buy real estate in cash. That's the difference. And that's the reason why no one was going to publicly say this, but they all favored the crypto. And that's the reason why there was a terrible shortage for a very long time, because all those cards were coming straight out of the factory and going straight to places like Iceland and China and Vietnam and all these other places and places in the US, because they had startups too that were doing it. You know who you are. There's YouTube channels of those people. So, that's basically why they were ahead of us in the VRAM. They were way ahead of us in the VRAM. They saw the wave. They saw the VRAM. It's going to go up. VRAM utilization went up in Ethereum. But thankfully for them, or I guess thankfully for us, the gamers, the Ethereum went proof of stake, and the rest is history. So now we get to deal with the VRAM problem that the Ethereum people already saw like 2 years ago. Because I said this on the previous stream, like I don't think that developers should gimp their game just because someone has like a 8 gigabyte 3070 Ti and is playing at 1440p and now they can't like handle the game because it's stuttering because of the VRAM. Like no, I don't care. It's like, sorry, you decided to buy that GPU and that's your problem. So if I'm the developer, I'm going to make the game run as good as it can or look as good as it can at Ultra, whereas if someone has an 8 gigabyte card, they're going to be running that game on medium or high. That's just how it is. Anyway, I think that's kind of it. Did I cover all the... Let's go back to the news articles. Custom, okay. Hogwarts Legacy dominated Q1 sales, and it's not even out on the biggest consoles. It's not even out on PS4 or Xbox One yet, and it's going to come out on the Switch in July. So this game's got a long way to go in terms of like seeing what its full potential actually ends up being. That's why it's definitely a Game of the Year contender. Let's see. AMD shows Ryzen 9 7940HS. I already forgot how to, determine what their naming scheme was for this. Yeah. RDNA 3 GPU. So basically the integrated Radeon 780M is faster than a GTX 1650 Max-Q, 35% faster than the 680M at 15 watts. That's actually pretty incredible. I wasn't expecting it to be that fast. For 15 watts? Okay, Honkai Star Rail codes for May. So for those that play Honkai Star Rail, there's some new codes or whatever. So just like make sure you activate those. And then Intel. So here's probably the most interesting news article that I've seen. This one pertains to Intel. So we talked a lot about NVIDIA on this stream, and then on AMD to a lesser extent. But now let's talk a little bit about Intel. Intel is going to change. This is a huge deal. Like, this is a big deal if this actually is true. If this is not some rumor, if this actually turns out to be true, this is a big, big deal. So Intel is going to kill off its iconic Core i7-953 whatever branding. So they're going to change their branding. They're basically going to go Kanye West on like their whole entire lineup and just call it Intel Core Ultra. Okay. Good way to go to downplay the meaning of the word ultra by making basically everything, including an i3, an ultra product. Good job. That's gonna be a really smart move, I guess. So here's what it says. So the leaker claims that the new naming is going to be, instead of Core, like for example, Core i9 and then whatever it is, they're going to call it Core Ultra 9 1000 something. Core Ultra 7 1000 something. Core Ultra 5 1000 something. So they're re-rolling back to the 1000 series. So they're not going to do like 14, 15, which I don't know how I feel about that because it was kind of an easy thing to understand. But I guess they're doing this because they think that it's not going to be cool to say that, we're on the 14th generation, even though it's very easy to understand, right? Like 13th generation had 13 numbered products and 14th generation will have 14 numbered products. But it's like, no, we're going to change it. So 14th generation is going to have some weird name like, I think there was one that I saw. Okay, maybe it was a different article. But essentially, right here, like the 1003H. So it's going to be called Core 5 or Core Ultra 5 1003H. Now, I'm guessing that that's probably a mobile laptop processor. But I don't know if they're doing this for just laptop, like how AMD's doing their laptop naming. Like, because AMD does their laptops differently than their CPUs. Like, they have some kind of weird... Remember, like, the media went to Vegas and AMD was like, hey, guys, this is our new naming thing. And they gave them, like, this spin the wheel of fortune thing to figure out how to know what the name of the product meant. This is a little bit more basic than that. It's literally like 1003. How are you supposed to pronounce that? Because I'm not going to call that a 1003, a Core 5, because you can't say i5 anymore. That's politically incorrect. So you have to call it the Core 5 Ultra 1003H, or are we going to pronounce it 1003H? You can't say 103H because that's going to, there's an extra digit there. That's not right. So is it 1003? Is it 1003? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like 1003? I don't know. Weird. But somebody here confirms, yes, we are making brand changes as we're at an inflection point. Oh, wait. No, I didn't want to go to Twitter. Hold on. We're at an inflection point in our client roadmap in preparation for the upcoming launch of our Meteor Lake processors. We will provide more details regarding these exciting changes in the coming weeks. So this will be officially made public soon with this new naming convention. This is kind of weird because unless they're only doing this for mobile, it still doesn't make sense to me because there's an entire generation of people who grew up essentially with the Intel Core i branding, and that going away is like a big thing. So maybe it's because they don't want it to be like Apple with the iPhone and the iMac and all that stuff. Maybe that's the iPad. Maybe that's the reason why they're going away from the i branding. But I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. The elusive Switch version. Yeah, well, that was probably the last major article. I mean, the only other one here. Honkai Star Rail surpasses Genshin Impact, launch with 20 million downloads in one day. So that game is pretty big. It's probably going to be best mobile game of the year. Yeah, that was pretty much all the news articles. Yeah, Hogwarts. AMD now lets gamers pay less than $500 for 16 gigabyte. 16 gigabyte experience starts at $499. The thing is, can you actually find a 6800 though? Like, aren't those completely gone? Oh, there was that 7950 XT Rock'em League. Is that on here? Oh, what? AMD finally confirms its plans for the mainstream Radeon. President and CEO Dr. Lisa Su admitted the company will have an update to the mainstream series this quarter. I mean, okay, we already knew that. I already told you guys that we're getting the 7800 XT basically before the end of June. So probably Computex is my guess. They're probably going to announce something at Computex and it's going to launch at the end of June, if I had to guess at this point. The 70, what is all this stuff? So earlier rumors mentioned that the graphics card might launch later this month. Unfortunately, no, I didn't think, no. Oh, the these mobile ones are already out? Oh no, they're hardly available. AMD is now confirming that there will only be an update to the mainstream segment, which typically means this. Okay, however, there was no indicators for now that AMD could be developing. Well, we already know that they have a 7800 XT because we already talked about this in a previous live stream. In fact, my latest YouTube upload is talking about the Radeon Pro W7800, which is basically going to be the same thing that the 7800 XT is going to be built off of or based off of. What is Lisa Su saying? In gaming graphics channel, sell-through of our 6000 and 7000 increased sequentially. We saw strong sales of our high-end Radeon 7900 XTX in the first quarter, and we're on track to expand our RDNA 3 GPU portfolio with the launch of our new mainstream 7000 series GPU this quarter. Okay, so this could be anything. This is probably going to be 7800 XT. It wouldn't make sense for them to launch a 7600 before a 7800. That doesn't make any sense because that's never how anyone has ever done anything. The only time that has ever happened, the only time AMD has ever done that is when they literally didn't have anything better to offer. So like RX 480. RX 480 was RX 480 because there was no, like, there was nothing, right? Like, Vega came a whole year later, and yeah. So, that's basically it for the news. Yeah. Okay, well, that's probably going to be it for this stream. We were able to go through all the news, and we talked a long time about a lot of this stuff. Somehow, we turned the stream into another thing about GPUs, which was... Okay, that was actually in the title of the stream, so I guess we were on track. They're really keeping it tight considering that leaks are rare. Well, not really. I mean, they're not really that rare, though. Because the whole, like, the W series. This one. This is the reason why, I don't know, I'm just sitting here looking at this, I'm like, we already know from this the specs of the 7800 XT. They're literally right there, you know? So, 70 CUs, 45 teraflops, AV1 encode decode, 260. So, the consumer edition of this card will probably be somewhere around, I don't know, like 280 watts, 290 watts. And it'll probably be closer to like 50 teraflops. 16 gigabytes of memory. Exact same DisplayPort 2.1 support and all that stuff that's already in the 7900 XT. So yeah, this is basically it. So this is it. Like, that's it. Different power limit, different memory configuration. That's basically it. Higher T-flops over this. That's your 7800 XT. Well, yeah, it's gonna be a 2-slot because the 7900 XT and the XTX are 2-slot. If we're talking reference card, they're all gonna be 2-slot if they're reference card. The AIB ones are probably gonna be thicker because they're gonna be closer to like 300 watts. So yeah, I have a feeling because they don't say on this one. Yeah. So 256, it's going to be a 256-bit bus, close to 50 teraflops, 2.6 gigahertz or whatever, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 290 watt TDP most likely. So that's going to be it. And it's probably going to be around $700, 650, 649 is what I think it's going to be priced at. Aren't they 2.5? That's a good question. I think they're... Okay. So, yeah. They're like 2.5. Hold on, what about the other one? Okay, yeah, they're 2.5. See, it overhangs. So, yeah, you're right. They're like 2.5. They're just over. You can see it right here. I think that if there is a reference card for the 7800 XT, it's probably going to be similar to this one. I think it's going to be very similar to this one. What is the TDP on this thing? This is... This is 300 watt. This is 300 watt. Okay, so that thing, so the production one was like, or the professional one was 260. That one's probably going to be like 275. 275 watt versus this. It's going to be double 8-pin. The thing is, I have a feeling that where most of the AIBs are going with triple 8-pin, I think on the 7800 XT, I think most of them are probably going to be dual 8-pin, and there will probably be some special, like some Red Devil, whatever, Sapphire Nitro stuff that'll probably be triple 8-pin, or maybe 2 8-pin and a single 6-pin, maybe something like that. But yeah, probably most of them will probably be dual 8-pin though. Like your typical XFX Merc and your ASRock Phantom and all those things, they're probably just going to be a standard dual 8-pin. The Hellhound from Power Color, that's going to be a dual 8-pin, if I had to guess. So very similar to what you have on the 7900. Yeah, like these. It's going to look like these. So... Alright, and with that, I'm probably going to go ahead and end the stream. I think it was interesting. We talked a lot about GPUs on this stream. And how the price has kind of changed over the years, or how over each generation. The Merc is huge. It's long, but it's not as thick. Yeah, the Merc is not as thick as the other ones. Where is it? It's like down at the bottom. This one. Yeah, it's really... It is like a 3-slot. Man, this thing looks like a Carnival cruise ship. It's just missing the stuff. Or it looks more like a... No, it doesn't... I was almost gonna say like a naval aircraft carrier. No, it doesn't look like one of those. It looks like a barge that goes under the bridge on like a river. Or it looks kind of like a, it's like a Carnival cruise ship without the thing at the top with the swimming pools and stuff. Looks like an 80s boxy. Oh yeah, I can kind of see that. Yeah. XFX, sometimes their designs are really nice, and other times they're really weird. Like, it's kind of like Zotac. XFX is kind of like the Zotac of the AMD brand. Because XFX only makes AMD and Zotac only makes NVIDIA cards. And they both tend to have these really weird, outlandish designs that sometimes, from a distance, they look understated and normal, but then when you look at them up close, then they have like some kind of weird thing going in terms of their theme. So I don't know. Whereas the Zotac looks like a snowboard, this thing looks like a snow speeder. So we'll leave it at that. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this stream. If you're new to the channel, we're typically always live Thursdays. So as far as I know, that's typically the schedule. Sometimes I will stream on the weekend. It just kind of depends on scheduling and if there's like some game that I really want to play or if there's some kind of hardware news that I need to talk about. But anyway, that's it. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.